I call to order this meeting of the Santa Barbara Unified School District's Board of Education for Tuesday, September 25th, 2018. We will begin by rising to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Matsuoka.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Buenas noches. Si alguien necesita interpretación al español, tenemos auriculares en aquel salón. Gracias.
Thank you. We also have headsets for the hearing impaired, and they're available, so please indicate if you need a headset. Thank you. Moving on to closed session action. We approved two different votes. One was Kate Parker made the motion for public employee discipline dismissal release, and Ish made a second to the motion. The board voted 5-0 to terminate a classified employee.
And point of order, Dr. Reed,
Yes.
may I ask what the item number was?
I'm sorry, it was number 5, public employee discipline dismissal release, Government Code 54957. And the second order of business in closed session is item number 6. Again, Ms. Parker made the motion and Ms. Sims Moten made a second to a vote. The board voted 5-0 to approve the final settlement agreement and general release in Student versus Santa Barbara Unified School District Special Education Due Process OAH case number 201-809-0090. Moving forward to item C6, Superintendent's Report. Mr. Matsuoka.
So we have two pieces to my report. The first part is really some celebrations of employees who have served our district for 30 plus years, and we have many of them. And so we're going to invite each of you to come up, and Dr. Becchio will give you your pin and a gift, and then we'd ask you to all sort of stay up front because we want to take a group picture at the end. So these are all employees who have served Santa Barbara Unified for 30 years or more. Over 30 years, now you're starting to talk about a couple generations of students. And so these staff have seen many hundreds, if not thousands of families go through their classrooms in their schools. So first, Lisa Ann Minotto, teacher at Cleveland. Next we have Socorro Avila, athletic equipment custodian, 30 years at Dos Pueblos High School. Next, Daniel Garski, teacher at Dos Pueblos High School, 35 years. Penny Rankin, paraeducator, early ed and support. Janet Hollister, math teacher, currently TOSA, Ed Services, La Cumbre Junior High. Karen Dutton, teacher, 30 years, now at McKinley Elementary School. Another employee from McKinley, Luz Maria Galvin, school health assistant, 30 years. Bob Trainer McDermott, teacher for 30 years, Peabody After School, expanded learning program. Elias Mendez, athletic equipment custodian, 30 years, San Marcos High School. Sharon Myers, secretary, Santa Barbara Junior High, 30 years. Suzanne Dalton, teacher, Washington Elementary School. Jeannie Palmer, special ed paraeducator, she retired, Washington Elementary School. And April Van Wickle, teacher, also retired, Washington Elementary School. One other person who was unable to join us. Let's see, did I read that? Oh, I already read. So Penny and Jack. Okay. All right. Now, we have one person out in the audience who deserves her own special moment. So, Deanna Marchando, would you please come forward? Deanna has served Santa Barbara Unified for 53 years. So, before we take a picture, Deanna deserves some recognition. So Deanna attended UCSB back in a long time ago. I will say, she was hired in 1965, and she taught at Franklin and Harding, and then spent a long time at Cleveland. And the majority of her years were in the primary grades. She saw many changes in education over the years, including a time at Cleveland that they were forced to set up 3 different calendar tracks to accommodate all the students. So Mrs. Marchando submitted her retirement on the very last day of school last year, June 8, 2018. So we wanted to bring her back just to celebrate her. So congratulations, Deanna. Yes, board members? Join us.
All right, ready? On the count, and John Vecchio, please, Dr. Vecchio. Ready? 1, 2, and 3. Let me, Ready? 1, 2, and 3. Awesome. Thank you so much.
And on the other side of celebrations are remembrances. These are employees who've served us well, but we also want to just share and have a moment of silence for 3 individuals who passed away who are very connected to Santa Barbara Unified. First is Maura Rose Kennedy. She was a special ed teacher throughout our district. She finished her career at Goleta Valley Junior High. She was teaching almost to the end and just succumbed to cancer. And she passed away August 18, 2018. And I know that's a sad thing for that campus and that community. She was known far and wide in special ed and especially for Special Olympics. So tonight we'll remember her. And then Linda Bailey, she was a mother of one of our kindergarten teachers at Roosevelt Elementary School. And she died yesterday in a car crash on Highway 1. So I'm sure that was in the news. And so just remember her as a mom of one of our staff. And then this name, James Bud Bottoms. You guys know these names. I'm a newcomer. So in front of Stearns Wharf, is a sculpture of, is it dolphins? Yeah. Yeah, and so he was a longtime art teacher at Santa Barbara High School, and then in retirement, he had even more fun doing sculptures. And he's just internationally known as an activist, environmental supporter, but best known to us as a local sculptor of some of the things that we enjoy and appreciate in our community. So would you please join me just in a moment of silence for these three individuals, Mara Rose Kennedy, Linda Bailey, and James Bud Bottoms. Thank you for that moment. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Matsuoka, and I just am thrilled for our 30-year veterans. It's just amazing, and it's just amazing to be in a job that long these days, right? My goodness. So anyway, I'm very impressed. So moving on to board comments and correspondence. Do we have any board comments or correspondence? Ms. Capps.
Yeah, I'd just like to report out that I was at Harding this morning, and just is such a wonderful campus, and there's so much pride there. I got to see firsthand our dyslexia pilot project in action with 3 little first graders, and it's just, as we sit here and sort of learn about the policy, to see it firsthand and watch these little girls learn these words was wonderful, as well as seeing the beautiful garden that they have, and a garden teacher who's paid for by the foundation, and then went to the music class where in 4th grade they were picking up their bows for the first time, and it was pleasant sounds. But anyway, I just was really struck by the pride in that campus. It's a beautiful campus, and it was nice to be there. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to add that we had our first coffee with the board, and I'm excited to say it was a huge success at Harding Elementary as well. And Ms. Sims Moten joined me, and you thought it was fun too.
I did.
All right. We
I was
got music
excellent.
in the background for that. So anyway, we were thrilled to have this opportunity together to sit around a table of over 40 parents and have a discussion about a lot of the positive things that are going on at the school, and also different issues that they wanted us to be considering and look at and talk about. And it was actually a really great thing. So we're happy that it was such a success. We have a second one coming in October. It's October 14th, and this will be at San Marcos High School. We're trying to do this series so that we can go be in an elementary school 1 month, and then a high school the next month, and then go back to an elementary school and sort of go back and forth. And we're going to be at San Marcos High School. Ms. Capps and Mr. Paredes Ulloa will be at that one. That will be at 5:30 in the evening. And then our final one before the end of the year will be at Monroe Elementary. And I still need someone to join me at that time. I'm sure you'll all just be jumping to do that. And so that will be another probably morning meeting as well, and that's in November. So I'm not going to give you the date as of yet, but we have that set. But what I do want to say is that we're really thrilled. The district shared, out with via social media and Twitter feed about the event, and they also put out information to the parents through Parent Square. And going forward, we're going to have more formal public news and announcements about it that will be uploaded on the website. There were quite a few pictures if you were, privy to the Twitter feed. And I just would like to say again, it was just, it's our job to be able to communicate and build relationships with the community. And we appreciate the opportunity to have such time. Because as you see at the board meeting, it's a meeting of the board in public. But in this case, it's an opportunity to actually dialogue and listen to your concerns and also positive messages that were shared. So I appreciated that opportunity, and we look forward to more coffee with the boards.
Can I just add?
Yes.
Also, because it was so formal and informal and relaxed, it really felt like a conversation, and that's really crucial in terms of that we're just folks on this dais, every 2 Tuesdays, but in the end, we're in the community, we want to hear what you have to say, and so we're able to have in a very relaxed atmosphere what the fears were, what the concerns were, and even suggestions going forward. So I very much appreciate the opportunity to do that, and the more that we continue to build our relationship, the more you get to know us, and we're on the ground really hearing what's going on, so it impacts the decisions that we're making here. And so I think it's the more we meet, the more we're informed of what's actually happening in the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sims Moten. So I also wanted to announce, because I'm hoping you're all going to stay till the end of this meeting. But in case you don't, and in case some people are tuning in at the beginning of this video and they don't wait till the end of the meeting, we did have a back-to-school night at Adams last week that I attended, and actually everyone here, I think, attended, right? I think Ms. Capps, you didn't make that one, but I think everybody else did. We also have McKinley's back-to-school night was Monday, and then Wednesday, quite a few of us are going to Goleta Valley Junior High. So Ms. Capps is going, I think I'm going. Anyway, we're going to a lot of these back-to-school nights, and it's been great to have the opportunity to not just stand there when they call our names, but to actually interact and meet with the people. So looking forward to speaking with you when we can step down off this table up here. Yes.
I also had the opportunity to attend the Santa Barbara High back-to-school night, and pleasantly surprised that there is a student who is now the president of the Parent Teachers Association. So that's to say a lot. A student is leading that. So it's good about our students, and they're taking their part in being part of the association with the teachers and the parents. So I just wanted to give out recognition out to this, shout out to that student who was brave enough to do that and said, I want you guys to be able to support me in that. So just to see him up there doing that, I think that's one of the first, if not ever, I don't know, Ms. Parker, you might be able to help with that. So, all right, so then we want to give him recognition and appreciation for his work.
All right. So, moving forward to C8, public comments, non-agenda matters within jurisdiction of the Board of Education. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Sims Moten because it looks like we have quite a few here.
We do have 26 speakers that want to speak today, and we want to make sure that everyone has that opportunity. So you'll notice that the time is now from 3 minutes down to a minute and a half to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak. And at 30 seconds, I will give you a quiet 30 seconds, and that lets you know that you're almost near the end with regards to that. So I'll call your name, and I'll call the next person following you to be ready so that we can keep it flowing. So we'll first start with Albert Oden. Albert.
You just said a minute and a half. I thought it was 3 minutes and a half.
No, it's from 3 minutes, so we make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. So you're going to have to speak a little fast and do that. So the next person coming after you, Allison Bell. So
Okay,
you're going to start us off.
Okay, my name's Albert Oden. I have 2 boys at Dos Pueblos. We all recoil hearing about the abuses at U.S. gymnastics and U.S. swimming, where institutions fail to protect young athletes.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Meg, you've got to start the clock. So you get now.
From sexual abuse
You're good.
of over a decade. Those headline abuses distract us from the mundane, day-to-day abuses that are both harmful to kids and have become normalized in Santa Barbara. When Stanford reveals that they rejected 70% of all applicants with perfect grades and SAT scores, the message and importance of extracurriculars is clear to students and parents, and it provides extraordinary leverage that coaches have over both. Captainships are coveted as important differentiators in college applications, as is placement on varsity. In one-on-one sports, coaches are not required to use a ladder, where placement on the team is based on performance. Coaches are allowed to use their quote-unquote judgment and can exercise bias, favoring some kids over others. Such judgment can ensure fervent support from grateful kids and parents while having a silencing effect on everyone else. Kids that advocate for performance-based placement on the team may risk never playing on varsity due to a coach's wish to punish under the guise of quote-unquote professional judgment. Prior to this year, one tennis coach made 7 out of 20 girls team captains. There was no ladder for players to move up or down based on performance. Similarly, on boys' tennis team, 10 out of 20 boys were team captains. Parents of team captains and varsity players that benefit from the coach's judgment were more likely to host parties, drive kids to matches, and write letters or fervent support. This is an anonymous letter from a fearful girl who wasn't on varsity and wasn't a team captain. She asked to be judged on a performance, not the coach's bias. Equal treatment of all players, no decisions based on favoritism. Positive reinforcement advise all players, not just favorites. Allow players to move up and down on a ladder based on results, not bias.
Thank you. Allison Bell, to be followed by Andy Gardner.
Hello, President Reed and members of the board. My name is Allison Bell, and I am the PTA president of Adams Elementary School, and I'm going to ask our PTA parents to stand up next here as well to show their support. We are seeking replacement of our playground asphalt by the end of the school year due to unsafe conditions. The poor asphalt condition has resulted in many injuries due to children slipping on loose gravel. We know that injuries occur on playgrounds, but the current state of the Adams asphalt is truly unsafe. Last spring, I picked up a little girl that's teeth were put into her gums, and she was not able to have a parent pick her up until noon later that day, and I don't even think she received dental care as needed. Our PTA has reached out to the district facilities team for multiple years, and we are told that we should wait until the temporary classrooms are replaced. Don't get me wrong, we want that project taken care of too, but due to safety issues, we need to come up with a new plan that addresses the immediate issue of our children's safety. This summer, the district maintenance crew made some ineffective temporary fixes that have led to even more injuries. I also come bearing gifts, not to be brash, but these are known among our kids as asphalt turds. The kids began picking this loose gravel up and the crack seal at the beginning of the school year, and they filled the bowl very quickly. There's plenty more at school if you would like your own personal collection. Although the district has $30 million in bond money for infrastructure replacement available now, we know our Adams replacement project is not scheduled to be replaced for another several years. We are asking that the school board intervene and prioritize the replacement work as a matter of safety.
Thank you. Andy Gardner, to be followed by Cressetta Silvers.
Hi, my name's Andy Gartner, and I just wanted to, I'm a designer. I work on developing outdoor nature-based educational facilities and curriculum. And I just wanted to tell you I was really excited when I had heard about the opportunity that you all might be developing Hidden Valley site with farming and edible forests. And so I just wanted to support this and hope you move forward with it. If you move into concept planning, I'd love to help you however I can. It's a great thing for kids to live a healthy life and to move forward as responsible citizens to the environment we live in. So that's it.
Thank you. Cressetta Silvers, to be followed by Michael Maciar. I apologize if I mispronounced your name.
Good evening, Superintendent and esteemed board members. My name is Cressida Silvers, and I'm an SB USD parent, and I'm here to thank you for your work you do with Just Communities, and to voice my support for continuing that work as part of your efforts to best serve all of our children. I attended a Just Communities workshop for parents this past May, sponsored by the Santa Barbara Area Council PTA, on the topic of implicit bias. I found it to be a welcoming and non-judgmental event with research-based information on unconscious bias that helped me better understand that bias is human nature. Everyone has some bias of one sort or another, often created by influences beyond our control, and that it is not something to be shamed for or to feel guilty about, but it is important to be aware of because of its possible repercussions. Recognizing my own biases, as well as those others may have against me, is critical to being able to minimize the damage we could cause, especially when we are in positions to affect the life course of our young ones. I was also impressed by the venue Just Communities created for people of different backgrounds and experiences and languages to come together in a way that they may rarely have opportunity to do otherwise, to share experiences and explore genuine questions and concerns from all sides, with facilitation that was thoughtful, generous, and positive.
Time.
I hope the district will continue working with Just Communities. Thank you.
Michael. To be followed by Gary Elkins.
Good evening, board members. I'm Michael Masiosi, a 6th grade teacher here in the district at Adelante Charter School for 14 years. I was sad to hear that Just Community's mission and work are being misrepresented. I'd like to share my own experience. I took part in IEE during the summer of 2016. What stood out for me was our commitment to dialogue and asking us to listen to each other's experiences and views. Ask any alum. It's a difficult workshop emotionally, recalling injustice, facing one's own responsibilities, and listening as others bravely share their own stories. This invaluable process contains a blueprint for compassion and reconciliation at a time when our society needs it. For me as a teacher, it's helped me to better evaluate how I relate with my mostly Latino students so that I can better serve them. Just Communities reminds us that race still defines the experience of many geocultural groups. The degree to which an individual faces prejudice and discrimination varies, yet for many educators and students that I heard from, these experiences take a real toll. As a white man, I do enjoy privilege. And though I already knew that, post-IEE, I see my place and position in higher definition. It's not a cause of shame, but to be unaware of it, as sadly many remain, is a disservice to all. My eldest daughter, Isabella, currently enrolled in Santa Barbara High School, attended CLI, and I'll share her comment with you.
CLI was an amazing experience that taught me about my white privilege in a way that allowed me to utilize it instead of be ashamed of it. It was an essential tool that I still use to this day and wish upon everyone. Education and awareness is not a divider, and humanity is not a political issue. Thank you.
Time. Thank you. Gary.
Excuse me, before we keep going, we do have a 7 o'clock time for our DLAC presenters, and so I wanted to get their approval if we continue with the public comment until we can have your presentation. Is that all right, or would you like us to stop? It might be another 20 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Gary Elkins?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Followed by Manny Singh.
My name is Gary Elkins. I'm a former assistant principal at Carpinteria High School. And throughout my training as an administrator, I never really got the practical issues that the Just Communities Equity in Education provided. I went to a summer 3-day workshop and took that information back to my school, where we proceeded to change the culture of Carpinteria High School. And through the education and the training that I got at Just Communities, within a year's time, we really were able to bring them in, their ideas in, as well as AHA and other groups that also serve the Santa Barbara School District. And the school just changed. Discipline became not an issue. Kids got along. But it's a constant training. Bias is generational, and it doesn't go away, and that continuous support, I think, is a very important issue, and hope you consider that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Manny, to be followed by Charles Cloud.
Hi, I had the pleasure of attending IEE during my first year of teaching, and I'm not going to preach. I know you all know what Just Community is about, but I will share my personal growth as a person, as a human, as a teacher, and that is what I feel the most shame about, and I know that I shouldn't feel shame about, is learning that I had bias towards other people of color, and those other people of color are my students in my classroom. And my bias wasn't geared towards fear or anything negative. It just made me realize that the bias I had resulted in having low expectations for my students and not pushing them as hard as they could be pushed. And that is something that IEE gave me, that I have the power to change every day, and it's something that I consciously think about at all moments. And I'm shaking right now because I'm so nervous and I'm so passionate about this, but taking this opportunity away from teachers and students is not cool. And we talked about in the resilience book that we've been reading, The Power of a Story. This is an opportunity for students to hear another story, and this is an opportunity for teachers and parents to hear another story. And we need to make that happen so the story doesn't remain negative.
Thank you. Charles Clow, to be followed by Dana Lewis.
Good evening. I'm Charles Clow. As a local educator, I've had the opportunity to work alongside Just Communities, both through their Institute for Equity in Education and their Implicit Bias Workshop. Throughout my every interaction with Just Communities, I've been struck by their commitment to equity for all students. Often this takes the form of helping targeted groups achieve empowerment. But crucially, this also involves equipping privileged groups with the tools necessary to become allies. To do this does not enhance otherness by demeaning whiteness. Rather, it enhances togetherness and serves to dismantle oppression. As a white man, my experience in education perfectly reflected my identity. Many of my own students do not have this privilege. The system that made my identity feel valid and valued is the same system that makes so many students feel disengaged from school. In my classroom, one of my guiding ideas is that an injury to one is the concern of all.
30 seconds.
Wouldn't it be a grand, beautiful thing if our community felt the same way? The work undertaken by Just Communities helps advance this mission. Please allow Just Communities to continue doing their amazing work with our students. Thank you.
Dana, to be followed by Ellen Field.
Good evening. I only just recently became familiar with the Just Communities program IEE curriculum, and I'm frankly shocked by the verbiage that it contains. I think that we can all agree that our aim is for all children to have equal access to a good education, receive validation for their efforts and progress, and that they enjoy a supportive community of students and teachers. In my opinion, the language I have seen in the Just Communities curriculum is anything but encouraging of a cohesive learning environment where all people are valued. It appears to be particularly hostile towards Caucasians and Christians. As the offspring of Armenian immigrants who fled genocide, which I consider to be the ultimate oppression, I am particularly sensitive to the denigration of any people. I urge you to reconsider spending our precious LCAP funds in this way and to direct it to the at-risk children to whom it was intended. Thank you.
Thank you. Ellen Field, to be followed by Rita Zigeldi.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Ellen Field. My Liverpool, England born great-grandparents came to Santa Barbara in 1919 via Toronto, Canada. Walter Muston worked as a cement contractor and helped rebuild Santa Barbara after the 1925 earthquake. And my grandmother danced in the Fiesta Parade and worked as a maid to wealthy Montecito families. I reviewed the relevant materials in the Just Communities curriculum, and I was disgusted by the blanket characterization of racial and religious status, by the cartoonish generalization of imagined groups, oppressor Christians targeting all other religions, teaching children to classify and jacket others in some sort of invented retributive system. It's simply wrong. I would argue that it does not contribute to the more cohesive community our forebears, friends, and families have worked so hard to achieve over the many years. My expectation is that full transparency regarding the curriculum materials and aims be fully vetted by parents throughout the district. Further, as a mother of a special needs son who's a lifelong client of Tri-Counties Regional Center, the diversion of LCAP funds to a racial and religious targeting program should be stringently audited. Thank you very much.
Rita, to be followed by Laura Wooster Dorfman.
Dr. Reed, can I have just a point of order on this? Because I'm concerned at some of the public comment here, talking about news that they've read about content from Just Community documents that are not from Just Communities. And so I want to be clear that there are errors in that, and so I hope that the public will keep an open mind, and that more information will be released and be more transparent over the next few weeks, I hope, about what actually comes from Just Communities and what others have created in the name of Just Communities. Thank you. Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rita Newhouse Sagletti. I have worked in the SB Unified School District for 20 years. For the last 18, I've been a special ed teacher. I've seen a lot. Just Communities has a long-standing relationship with Santa Barbara Unified, going back to 2002 with the first Safe Schools program. I find it appalling that there is a group of people out there that want to sue SB Unified for partnering with Just Communities. Just Communities has been an absolute asset to the SB community at large. Our world is changing, where inclusion is considered the right side of history. I am proud of SB Unified for recognizing the need for more inclusion in so many areas: women, people of color, the LGBTQ community, students with special needs, etc. Santa Barbara Unified is on the right side of history and should continue to work for Just Communities for the benefit of thousands of adults and children alike. Ultimately, the school district is responsible for the
30
education
seconds.
of its students. People at all levels discuss what are the best ways to meet student needs. It is a constant topic and one not without controversy. SB Unified needs to be trusted to provide the best learning environment for its students. We are the professionals in this area. And the last thing I want to add is when teachers have so many tools, thanks to Just Communities. When students feel welcome, they are more engaged.
Time.
When they are more engaged, they want to try. And when they try, they learn by default and learn more. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura, to be followed by Denise Adams.
Good evening, President Reed, Superintendent Matsuoka, Board, and Cabinet members. My name is Laura Wooster-Dorfman, and I am a TOSA for Restorative Approaches in Student Engagement. I am also on the leadership team this year at La Cumbre Junior High School, and I'm in my 11th year as a teacher in the Santa Barbara Unified School District. I am here to speak in support of Just Communities and the work that they do. I have attended IEE, facilitated talking in class, participated in implicit bias workshops, and have been involved in Allies for Equity committees. There has not been another organization that has run programming more powerful and impactful on my professional work, or for the lives of the students that they work with. I can wholeheartedly say that my teaching practice and personal life has been challenged by and improved by the work of Just Communities. We would be greatly disadvantaged in the forward progress we are making in our equity work as a district if their programming and partnership were to be taken away. They're a great resource in our community, not only as advocates for what is best for students, but also as advocates for what staff need to be most effective and equitable. It would be a great disservice to our students and district if this partnership were severed. I attended the Institute for Equity in Education in December of 2014, which was the single most powerful week of professional development that I have received. It allowed us as educators to take a critical look at data, look at the discrepancies in the achievement gap, and start to plan for how to fix those things to allow for equitable access to education in our schools. It had us walking away with a shared understanding, better vocabulary, and better understanding of ourselves and the lens from which we view the world. Never did I walk away feeling like I was called a racist. I will email you the rest.
Thank you. Denise Adams, to be followed by Kate Nelson.
Trustees, and I want to say your last names, but Wendy, Laura, Ismail, Kate, Jacqueline, and employees Carrie, Sean, John, Fran. The directory lists you all by your first names instead of the last. It's very hard as a member of the public to find your contact information, so please take care of the website. Most of us know people by their last names, not their first, so with all due respect to that, will you please address that matter on your website. I understood that the issue of Just Communities would be coming up under agenda item F4 as per your agenda on social equity. So I reserved my comments for that period. I have given to Dr. Reed, the president, 10 exhibits that I would like to enter into the public record. I view that the program is unconstitutional as per the California and U.S. Constitution. For your information, this is Constitution Week, so I encourage you to look at the constitutions, particularly the California Constitution, Section 9, as well as the U.S. Constitution. I will make my comments on Just Communities during that time slot, F4, and at that time, I would like to reference all the documents I gave to you, Dr. Reed. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate Nelson, to be followed by Kelly Savio.
Hi, my name is Kate Nelson, and I'm a teacher at Dos Pueblos. This is my 21st year there. I attended IEE training 6 years ago. First, I'd like to commend the school district for offering the best professional development I have ever had as a teacher through Just Communities. IEE changed my view of the world and made me a better teacher. I grew up in a pretty disruptive household, so early on I made the decision that nothing would hold me back from my life goals. I held the belief that if I could pull myself up by my bootstraps, so could everyone else. I truly thought I was helping my students by telling them to get some grit or to just buck up. My experience with Just Communities changed all of that. One exercise in particular, the level playing field, provided me with a much needed new perspective. In the exercise, all participants line up in the middle of the room, holding hands. The instructors read statements pertaining to our experiences in life, and we take steps forward or backward depending on the statements. When the exercise was complete, I was at the front of the room, with only one person ahead of me. No one was next to me. Suddenly, I was overcome with a sinking feeling. The instructor asked us to turn around to see where everyone else was standing. My good friend, an African-American woman, was against the back wall. I was overcome by the distance between us. I broke into tears. Nothing needed to be said. The reality was clear. We do not all begin our lives with the same advantages. I have taken this lesson to my classroom, and it continues to impact me on a daily basis. It has improved my relationships with my students because now more than ever, I see each student as an individual. Thank you.
Kelly Savio, to be followed by Vicki Haynes.
Hello, my name is Kelly Savio, and I'm an English teacher at Dos Pueblos High School and an IEE graduate. I wanted to come today to thank you for funding the invaluable workshops run by Just Communities and to emphatically urge you to continue funding these essential programs. When faced with an issue like the achievement gap that is so big, so systemic, and so obviously problematic nationwide and not just locally, it feels overwhelming to try and figure out where to even begin addressing the issue. The IEE training gave me the tools to finally start. I will not solve the national crisis, but I have already started addressing that crisis in my classroom with the young people of my community. And a significant part of me doing this involved getting information from Just Communities that I didn't know I didn't know. I have always considered myself an informed and empathetic person, and I thought I understood systemic racism, but as a person who is white, there were so many aspects of those things that were so far off my radar, I didn't even know to be looking for them. Like I said, I didn't know what I didn't know. And that is what I'm most grateful to have taken away from IEE. I applaud you for putting funds into the work Just Communities does with our district, and again, implore you to continue that funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Vicki Haynes, to be followed by Clayton Speak.
Good evening, my name is Vicki Haynes, and I'm beginning my 24th year at San Marcos High School. And I just wanted to come because I actually watched the last school board meeting, and I heard the concerns that were being promoted or being spoken of at the last meeting. And one thing I did learn from Just Communities is that tension's not always bad, and dialogue's important. And so there are individuals out there with absolute concerns, and I would just like to offer dialogue time. I can be reached at San Marcos High School if there's a parent or a community member who is interested in hearing the kind of curriculum I encountered, which doesn't sound familiar. What you're presenting is not sounding familiar to me as a white woman and as a Christian. I didn't feel that I experienced that at all. And so my experience is very different than what you are getting or the information that you're getting. And so if you are interested, my name is Vicki Haynes. I can be reached through San Marcos High School. Open to coffee. I'm a nice person. I won't buy it, I promise. And we talk about not labeling people. And so if you're concerned that you're going to be labeled in a particular way, just want to let you know that that won't happen, that we are open to dialogue, to talking it out, and we believe that will bring us a new understanding and a deep care and care for our community. So open to that if you need that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Peyton Speak to be followed by Melanie Jacobson.
I'm Kathy Speak. I teach English at La Colina. I'm a parent of 2 boys who are at San Marcos. I teach some of your children right now. I'm giving my time to Melanie Jacobson, but I'm here in support of Just Communities. I just want you to know that.
We'll just conclude with that time because we don't have 2 people coming speaking up. So we'll conclude with 116. Keep going with that.
I'm Melanie Jacobson.
Okay, Melanie, thank you.
I've taught world history for 25 years in this district, and I'm a graduate of the Institute for Equity in Education a couple of years ago. Across my 30 years of teaching, I've attended multiple week-long institutes for history, social science teachers at various universities, and none have been as personally and professionally impactful as Just Communities. It's impossible to teach world history without confronting the abundance of evidence of the inhumanity that we humans have continually inflicted on each other. Just Communities provides models that have been valuable in my discussions with
30
students
seconds.
about the range of human behaviors in the face of injustice and persecution. I'm not sure I completely understand the basis for the complaint, but here's what I do know. The school district aims to serve all students with equity, but we fall short. The teaching staff across the district does not mirror the majority of our students who are people of color. In order to move toward greater equity, the district engaged this nonprofit organization to help staff narrow learning gaps disproportionately demonstrated by our students of color. It's nice to think that we can be colorblind, that we have moved beyond racism.
Melanie,
but that's...
thank you. We're really... Well, no, she doesn't get 2 more minutes because you don't have 2 people sitting up there in terms of that, because we want to make sure that everybody has time to speak today. So we want to make it equitable. So you can certainly hand that into us, so I appreciate that. We just want to keep it in order and keep it going, so it's fair. Kelly Keene, to be followed by Katie Garibay.
Hello, my name is Kelly Keene, and this will be my 4th year teaching in this district. I teach English at San Marcos High School and have attended IEE, talking in class sessions with students. I've also been a part of Allies for Equity on our campus, and I felt that all those experiences were very positive, valuable, and inclusive. I teach English, and a lot of the curriculum focuses on helping students check their sources and also choose their words very carefully. I encourage and am grateful that our board is going to be doing the same with this issue. I think that Just Communities is a great program. I'm glad that I got to be a part of it, and I'm excited that we're going to continue dialoguing about it because I think that's really important. So thank you.
Thank you. Katie, to be followed by Cameron Heather Hatcher-Day.
Hi, my name is Katie Garibay, and I'm a teacher at San Marcos High School. I attended IEE as a participant in 2015 and have since worked with Just Communities in a number of other roles. Attending IEE had a profound impact on my teaching practice. One example is the concept of windows and mirrors, meaning students seeing their own culture reflected positively in the curriculum, thus increasing their self-confidence and engagement in lesson content. As an art teacher, I now regularly include artists of color, women artists, and LGBTQ artists in my lesson plans. I was so inspired by my experience at IEE that I went on to train as a facilitator and have since worked with many Just Communities programs. I've also helped form an ongoing group called Allies for Equity at San Marcos, in which a diverse group of students, parents, and staff come together to work on making our campus more inclusive. Some positive outcomes of these programs I've seen at San Marcos include increased enrollments of students of color in AP classes, increased interpretation at school events, the creation of a Mexican-American literature class, and a free bus that brings students and families from the West Side to our football games. We're currently working on creating a parent welcome center to help increase parent connectedness and involvement on campus. I sincerely hope that the school board continues to work with Just Communities with our schools, as I strongly believe that equity and inclusiveness are crucial to the emotional well-being and academic success of all students in our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Cameron, to be followed by Connie Ruff.
My name is Cameron Hatcher-Day. I teach 8th grade English Language Arts at La Colina Junior High. Part of my job this year on our site leadership team has been to review our school CASP data. And as we've been reviewing this data, we've consistently seen that our students of color, our students of second language status, these students that are referred to by Just Communities as the target groups, they've consistently been the students that have not performed as well on this CASP test. And when I attended Just Communities last March in 2018, I saw their truly compassionate materials and effective materials that work to help students more successful in the classroom, both socially and academically. And so I think we really need to review these materials carefully and see how they can work in the classroom, because I've seen them work in my own. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Connie Ruff, to be followed by Samuel Duarte.
Good evening. My name is Connie Vidotto Ruff, and I have the pleasure of serving students, staff, and families at 2 elementary schools, Cleveland and Washington. My role is school psychologist, and I am here to speak in support of Just Communities as a believer in the importance of equity in education, and as an attendee and graduate of Just Communities Institute for Equity in Education and the workshop on implicit bias. I want to start by saying thank you to Santa Barbara Unified School District for the vision of having the work of Just Communities be a part. And I want to say thank you to the board for the wisdom of approving the work of Just Communities. Thank you to Just Communities for your work and the positive difference it makes. I appreciate the opportunities I've had to participate and learn in Just Community trainings. Their work addresses adversity or diversity of all kinds and our responses to that diversity. It helps us look at ourselves and think differently. That helps us experience our commonalities and learn from our differences from a positive perspective. It fosters empathy, and empathy is what we need. It fuels connections, in the words of Brené Brown.
Time.
Connections for relationships with our students.
Thank you. Samuel Duarte, to be followed by Laura Henderson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Samuel Duarte. I'm a director for a small nonprofit in Guadalupe called The Little House by the Park, and I'm here representing a group of parents, 19 women, who for the last 7 years have built a collaborative relationship with the Guadalupe Union School District, a partnership in which meaningful engagement means being engaged in their children's academic lives and in a manner that brings awareness to systemic biases. This authentic partnership was born out of the work that Just Communities has carried out in North County, and which encourages dialogue, collaboration, and more importantly, a joint commitment to our children. So hope you all support Just Communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Henderson, to be followed by Sherry Roseberg.
Good evening. My name is Laura Henderson, and I'm a kindergarten teacher at Jimenez Elementary in Santa Maria. I'm an ardent supporter of Just Communities. I attended the Institute for Equity in Education in 2011, and I can say without reservation that IEE has been the single most positive and influential training that I have ever attended. My experiences at the Institute gave me access to the knowledge and skills that I need to provide high-quality teaching to all of my students. Because of my learning, my practice is more thoughtful, inclusive, and my relationship with the students and families that I serve is more meaningful. Because of my learning at IEE, I am better able to understand and build on the diverse prior experiences of my students and provide more relevant and authentic curriculum. While Just Communities does much to drive positive change, so much more of this kind of training that they provide is needed. Indeed, this type of training has not been available to
30
me
seconds.
through any other district or county professional development. IEE has changed me so much that I not only have a greater sense of purpose and resolve to do and be more as an educator and community member, but I even enjoy my work more. At the end of the day, each of us is here to serve so that students can reach their full potential as responsible, ethical, productive citizens in a diverse and changing world, and Just Communities is a partner in reaching that goal.
Thank you. To be followed by Paula Sevilla.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Sheridan Rosenberg. I'm a parent. I have a child at Santa Barbara High School, and I have to say I'm here because I did read the newspaper article this morning, and I was quite taken aback, if not just downright offended, by some of the language that's apparently being used in the training. And as a parent, I understand that LCAP really specifically states that we want parent involvement and transparency. I'm wondering, Kate, you did say that we need to be cautious about jumping to conclusions based on the curriculum because we don't have enough information. I would like all the information. I think parents and the community taxpayers, I'm also a taxpayer obviously, I think the entire curriculum should be put online or available to the public so we can decide for ourselves. Would you be willing to do that? And another comment and question is, why is it so expensive? It's suddenly, I did see a video of,
30
because I want to
seconds.
understand this, of the last board meeting. $250,000 out of LCAP is a big commitment, and it's my understanding that those funds are to be used for the most vulnerable of the student community, the foster children, homeless children, children that are learning English and need to be brought up to grade level. And so I just really want more information, and I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Paula Sevilla. To be followed by Miriam Santos.
Good evening. My name is Paula Sevilla. I teach 5th grade at Adelante Charter School. I also had the opportunity of attending Just Communities Institute for Education, for Educational Equity, and one of the most profound takeaways for me was the history of the education system in the United States that we learned about. Can you imagine the mistakes that could be made by a physician who didn't understand the history of her profession, or a lawyer who didn't know the history of law? Similarly, as educators, it behooves us, indeed, I would say, that it is our professional responsibility to know the history of the system in which we work. And if said system has been racist, or if it has been, systematically segregating communities of students, that does not make the teaching of said history racist. Rather, it makes it teaching of historical fact. Our school system today, per Rothstein, Richard Rothstein, who wrote The Color of Law, is the most segregated it has been in the last 45 years. Things are not getting better on their own. Just Communities' teaching of the history of the education of the U.S. in the U.S. is opening the eyes and ears of educators in ways that inform our practice now. It is helping us to see systemic racism that is still around us and to take steps to create change. Indeed, it is empowering us to take steps not toward diminishing any one group, but rather to move toward the equity that our district so desires for every group. Thank you.
Miriam Santos. To be followed by Michelle Kakamo.
Do I press this, or is it
You're
just
good.
automatic? Okay. Hello, my name is Miriam Santos, and I'm currently an 11th grader at Santa Barbara High School. I was first introduced to Just Communities by doing a Talking in Class 3-day course. Honestly, it's amazing, and it has helped me so much, and it has given me hope for my future, and it has given me a better understanding for situations that I often face, but also the unique identities that I carry with myself. I just really want this program to grow, and with your help, it would be amazing if you guys would really help us, because it's not just helping me, it's helping tons of students like me. And so this program, this 3-day program, actually gave me, I made my own club at school. And it's just amazing how much the kids at my club are like pouring themselves onto me. They're trusting me with everything, and it's awesome. And so I really
30
hope
seconds.
you guys keep helping Just Communities.
Thank you. To be followed by our final speaker, Karen McBride.
Hola, my name Hola, my name is Michelle Carcamo, and today I will be speaking to all of you of why I believe that Just Communities is a great program. Just Communities, I was actually in the Talking Class program of last summer, and let me tell you, I entered the room and I felt so safe. I felt like at home. And Just Communities teaches us to love each other and love everyone. To everyone that thinks that we're targeting people, that's not true. What they teach us is that it's not the person's fault. It's just the system that has been created that gives privilege to other people. And we understand that that's not like a certain group of people's fault. And I thank Just Communities for that. Just Communities has given hope to people that felt hopeless. Just Communities has given wings to people like me to go for our dreams and not be afraid because we have people behind us. So I can't believe that people would try to like do something to this program that is helping people like me. And I guess I'm just here today as a student telling you guys to please continue to work with Just Communities. Please do not clip the wings of people like me.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Matsuoka and Fran and John. My comments are very spontaneous based on what I've heard tonight, and I just want to say that I service the Santa Barbara Teachers Association Union President, and so I'm not currently in the classroom working with students, although I've been in the shoes of all of the teachers who have spoken here, and I appreciated Melanie's comments about the history, that we are working to undo. There's some long-standing history, and we're all part of it. We all have our stories, and I know that it doesn't matter what color your skin is. You have pain. You have experiences in your life that make you feel like you have been, trod upon. You've been the victim. You're not always. You don't feel privileged all the time. None of us do. But the bottom line is that it doesn't matter where your starting point is. We all need to grow.
30 seconds.
And I think the single most important thing in educating our students is their social, emotional growth and safety. And it doesn't matter what meeting I go to, what topic I discuss, what curriculum we're talking about, what grade level, what subject matter. That is the single most important thing, and that's what the kind of education IEE gives us. It addresses the social emotional, which you can't get anywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Sims-Moten, and I want to thank everyone here that spoke this evening and for coming out and speaking your positionality. That's what our meeting is about, and to hear the various voices of our community, and it's very important that you do so. I would suggest that you stay quite a while because we have some reports that you might be interested in that actually reflect a framework for equity and cultural proficiency that the district is going to frame for us later. But I right now would like to move forward with the agenda item E1, the presentation and approval of resolution number 2018/19-13, proclaiming September 15th through October 15th, 2018, National Hispanic Latino Heritage Month. And what I'd like to say is I have the opportunity as the president of the board to present and actually speak to some history that I think is very relevant and important, but to acknowledge also the DLAC leadership that we have in this school district, that we're proud to have members of that leadership group here tonight. Laura Gomez. She's the DLAC co-president, and she'll be speaking this evening. Not quite yet. Sergio Naveda, co-president, was unable to make it today, but we will also have Gloria Hernandez, president advisor, who will be speaking, and Gabriel Dorado, who is the secretary. But I have the honor and privilege again to just sort of give some highlights as to why we are acknowledging this important National Hispanic Latino Heritage Month. So I'm going to speak to some of these highlights and then share a few comments of my own. National Hispanic Latino Heritage Month began in 1968 when the United States Congress passed a law which authorized and requested the President of the United States to issue an annual proclamation designating the week, including September 15th and 16th, as National Hispanic Latino Heritage Week. This law celebrated Hispanic and Latino Americans, the anniversaries of independence for the Latin American countries of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, and Mexico's independence on September 16, 1810. In 1988, Hispanic Latino Heritage Week was changed to a month-long recognition that begins on September 15th and ends on October 15th. The 2018 National Hispanic Latino Heritage Month theme, approved by the National Council of Hispanic Employment Program Managers, is Hispanics, one endless voice to enhance our traditions. Hispanic and Latino students represent nearly 60% of the Santa Barbara Unified School District's 2017-2018 population, enriching the education experience of all students and staff. The district is also comprised of a diverse group of Hispanic and Latino certificated and classified employees who have a profound and positive influence through their commitment to strengthen the educational success of every child. I'm asking the board to join me in approving this resolution proclaiming National Hispanic Latino Heritage Month, September 15th through October 15th, 2018. But I also want to ask the board to urge all students and staff to observe this month by learning and acknowledging the contributions, histories, and cultures of American residents whose ancestors came from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central and South America. I believe in the importance of highlighting this resolution at this time, but I would also like to add that I believe Hispanic Latino heritage should be supported, sustained, and integrated across our district systems and our teaching and learning, but on an ongoing basis, not just one particular month, though we will be acknowledging it through this resolution today. But it should be integrated across curricula, across the district. But I would also like to add that it is important that as a district, we acknowledge all cultures to ensure an inclusive curricula across our district as part of our practice to create a more culturally proficient district. So, in the spirit of this 2018 theme, recognizing the many distinct voices that endlessly contribute enhancing traditions, I am inviting representatives from our District English Learner Advisory Committee, DLAC, to share with us a little about their tradition and the work in our district to give our board the opportunity to celebrate and acknowledge our partnership with DLAC. This is a significant week for our DLAC leadership team. And as September 27th is their first meeting of the year, they anticipate a full boardroom and first floor conference room for their first meeting. So with that said, it is an honor and a privilege to invite to the dais to say a few words about the resolution and their work with our district. We'll begin with Laura Gomez, the DLAC co-president, followed by Gloria Hernandez, president advisor.
Buenas noches, distinguidos miembros del Consejo y Superintendente Matsuoka.
And Superintendent Matsuoka, we actually thank for this opportunity to recognize our heritage, our Spanish Latin heritage. We are here with the presence of Gabriel Dorado, our Secretary of DILAC, and the Assistant President, Gloria Hernandez. I want to take this opportunity to highlight a couple of important facts. First, California is the 5th power in the world, and this is mainly due to the contribution of Latinos in this state. Here in Santa Barbara, without any doubt, there wouldn't be the prosperity, the economic prosperity that we have in this city without the service industry given by the Latino hand labor. Second, our student body is over 60%. For us, as parents, it's important that our students receive an equitable education with respect to their own culture, tradition, and language. We are convinced that only in this way we can really develop the great potential of our Latino students. Committees like DILAC give power to our parents to express their doubts, worries, and recommendations. The leadership of parents allow them to improve the education of their children, to basically ensure post-secondary education that actually gives the student the opportunity to be part of the labor industry beyond only the service industry. I would like to say good night, and I'm really without actually valuing your contribution. At the same time, we request that this resolution becomes an action so that it will allow that decisions in education are taken considering the impact that it could have in our Latino students. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, members of the Council, President Dr. Reed, and Superintendent Matsuoka. I actually thank this recognition for our Latina Hispanic heritage. I am the Assistant President of DILAC. I have 18 years as a facilitator, like with Padres Adelante and Crianza with Con Cariño. My position as consulting president, the labor of this year has let me see the development of our ILAC, something that hasn't been easy, but we have been persistent. Our district has actually supported us by offering classes for our parents, the same as their responsibilities and rights. And this has allowed them to use their voice and their vote in support of our students and their schools. Some examples of this are the position that the position of our director of parent engagement and family commitment. The changes in support of our students who are learning English have become true thanks to our leaders. We cannot ignore the presence of Hispanic Latinos. And finally, I would like to thank Mr. Matsuoka because he has participated and he has been present in our DILAC meetings this year, something that had not been done before and that I would like to keep it going. The same way, I would like to extend an invitation to Mr. Parker, Mrs. Parker Uloa, CAPS, that you can participate when time allows. And with this, I'm finishing my presentation to say you thank you and to tell you that when our superintendent participates and hears directly from the parents, and when they actually present some kind of a concern, I tell them, here is your superintendent here. He's listening from you directly. He's not hearing things from somebody else. And this creates trust in the parents and an alliance that I hope will never lose.
Thank you very much, both of you. And we appreciate you coming and for this honor and privilege to support this resolution. I'm going to turn to my board to find out if there are any comments that any of the board members would like to make. Mr. Paredes Ulloa.
Of course, I'm in favor of this resolution, but I do want to point out a couple things. While the term Hispanic does recognize the Spanish heritage that many Spanish-speaking people in this country share, I want to make sure that the term Latino also acknowledges the indigenous roots that still exist today, and that many of our quote-unquote Latino population do not natively speak Spanish. And those populations exist in California, Arizona, Texas, throughout the Southwest, and through South and Central America. I also want to acknowledge that due to these indigenous roots, not all Hispanics or Latinos came into this country as the borders stand today. Many of us, quote-unquote Latinos, Hispanics, are from this area. Because of the mixing of Spanish with indigenous blood, many of us were born in what is now called California, Arizona, Nevada, all these different areas. So again, I support this resolution, but I just want to make it crystal clear that we did not everyone came into this country. This country came onto where we are our homes. And again, that Latinos/Hispanics come in very many varieties and speaking many different languages.
Thank you, Mr. Paredes Ulloa. And it's very important that we look historically, but also we are transparent about the various facts and bring those forward. So I appreciate that. Appreciate your voice. Ms. Parker.
I will second Mr. Paredes Ulloa's motion and agree with everything. Thank you. This was great.
Before we approve it, though, is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? Ms. Taps?
Just to thank the DLAC committee for being here, and you've been so much more present here in our board meetings of late, or it seems that way to me. And I thank you for the invitation. I would like to come to meetings, and I know you've been just much more communicative. Maybe that's something, Dr. Reed, that you've facilitated, but I very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'll try to email you the dates, so
Great.
whenever you're available, you're welcome to assist, and everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so I guess we will move forward with a motion. And
so moved.
Go ahead. You did it, Mr. Paredes Ulloa? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. And it's unanimous. So before, though, we move on to the next item, I think there's some photo ops that I've been informed of. So we are going to step down as a board, and we're invited to take a photo with the DLAC leadership.
Oh, yeah, right here. Yeah, send that to her.
Yeah, and then actually, I'm gonna move the two of you over there, if you don't mind. Even it out, move it up. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. And then one on my cell phone, please. Ready? 1, 2, and 3. Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Might be worth it.
You made me turn.
Okay, we're gonna go back to the consent agenda. So we're moving backwards to the consent agenda. At this time, it's item D1. Are there any items that the fellow board members would like to pull? I will just start by saying I will be pulling item number 17. Any other items? All right, and actually mine is, a part of our practice is if it's brief comments, we pull them up front and we discuss them now. And so I'd like to take that opportunity to discuss it now. Mr. Vizzolini, this is item number 17. It's approval of agreement for architectural services with Kruger Benson Ziemer Architects Incorporated for site assessment and land use options for the Hidden Valley property. And it was actually referenced by one of our public comments. And actually, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to share with the public the work that's going to, the approval of the work that's going to be happening with Hidden Valley. It sounds like a very exciting endeavor. So would you mind just sort of expanding a little bit about it for us? Thank you.
So recently, staff has been working with various partners, our food services director being one of them, a little bit of work with the Audacious Foundation, and with the architect that we asked to have an approval for. And the vision is to utilize the property in a much better way. So we have some thoughts on the development of it. We had some very preliminary talks about different types of structures that could be there, the type of curriculum that could be supported there. Edible forest was something we came up and talked about. A couple of the environmental sciences were part of the discussion. You know, a natural forest in the area. There's just so many different things that it could be used for in a natural environment. And the idea was that it wouldn't become this huge enclave. It would be more of a type of an area that everybody in the school district could use on a small scale. So it wasn't, you know, it's not intention to have thousands of people show up. It's more in tune with a smaller group, maybe by grade level, a couple of grade levels at a time, by school, STEM, possibly some STEM programs, but certainly some farm to table for our own kids. So our food services director is very interested in being able to farm the area and take that stuff. We also have culinary kitchen in mind as a possibility for having kids actually go through that program from growing out of the ground to you know, turning it into food and serving it to people. So those were just some very basic ideas about what we're talking about. So the proposal is to get a more involved effort on what that would look like. And then of course we have, you know, there's some planned outreach to neighborhood, further reports to the board to see what it actually looks like as it takes shape.
Thank you very much. I just think it was an opportunity to share about this, and I'm a strong believer of the farm-to-table model, but also place-based education and utilizing the nature around us and the environment to be able to focus on that. So I just wanted to highlight that as a positive thing that was inside this consent agenda before we did a one fell swoop. So I'm going to move it back in to the consent agenda, and I would like, is there a motion to move the consent agenda forward?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Vizzolini. Moving forward, we have already done item number 1, and we will now be moving to item E2 on our action agenda, approval of resolution 2018/2019-11 in support of recognition of October as Dyslexia Awareness Month. And we have Dr. Wagonet, are you going to be presenting? Or
you want to start? No, I can finish.
So, Board, I bring to you this resolution in support of the recognition of October as Dyslexia Awareness Month.
And I'm going to read the resolution for the record that whereas the Santa Barbara Unified School District recognizes that our children are our most valuable resource, we must provide opportunities to learn and grow. Whereas the International Dyslexia Association defines dyslexia as a language based on learning disability, inheritable, and highly prevalent, affecting as many as 15 to 20% of the population as a whole. Whereas dyslexia, meaning difficulty with words, constitutes one of several distinct learning disabilities and is characterized by challenges in processing language when decoding oral and written words. Whereas dyslexia deeply affects students' ability to read, write, spell, and comprehend, and may also affect students emotionally and their overall well-being. The National Institute of Child Health and Human Development states that poor literacy is a national health problem because of the ramifications that can last a lifetime. Whereas students with dyslexia, especially those who are not identified and are reading below grade level at the end of 3rd grade, often experience difficulties with depression, anxiety, and poor self-image, and rarely catch up to their peers, and as a result underperform in school and are at a greater risk for failure and dropping out before completing high school. Whereas with proper identification, appropriate instruction, accommodation, access to assistive technologies, support from families, teachers, and friends, individuals with dyslexia can excel in school and employment. And whereas the district works to inform and empower families, educators, and businesses with the most current research-based practices to promote meaningful literacy development with the goal of preparing individuals for a hopeful and productive future, whereas each student who struggles to learn is unique and deserves every chance to fulfill his or her potential for a happy and productive life, and whereas in an effort to assist parents, educators, and individuals, the International Dyslexia Association has designated October as Dyslexia Awareness Month. Therefore, be it resolved that the Santa Barbara Board of Education does hereby proclaim October 2018 Dyslexia Awareness Month in the Santa Barbara Unified School District and encourages staff members, families, and the community to collaborate to raise awareness and understanding in so much as to identify, treat, and prevent problems associated with dyslexia in order to ensure the success for every student with dyslexia. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Matsuoka?
I'll offer some comments. I'll also give an opportunity to Ms. Binkley or Ms. Kroc if you wanted to make some comments. You can design your speech as you walk up. You got short notice. You know, my comments about a year ago, we were just launching the pilot program at Harding, and we presented the results. The results are, you know, are just so, they're so convincing that the model in elementary, I believe, it's working. And so today, we're 5 times bigger, a year forward. And, you know, we're monitoring the program. We're finding that junior high kids need a little different kind of angle and support because now they're older, but they still have deep needs. And so we're really trying to make sense of the junior high and high school program. Rita Sigletti, who spoke, is the teacher at Santa Barbara High. So I'm really proud of the work that we're doing. And we have the support of Santa Barbara Ed Foundation. Margie Ayavi is right out there fundraising for this effort. So this resolution is no longer just words, it is action. And I'm really proud of our district for taking action. So I'll invite our 2 Harding colleagues to come up and just share their thoughts, their brief thoughts.
I'm Veronica Binkley. I'm the principal at Harding, and I will be very brief. I'm just going to sum it up by saying that the data already speaks for itself, but what I see every day, and even today, Ms. Capps was in the same room where Claire was teaching, the pride and joy and self-esteem that is building in these little people as they learn to master reading, which is a skill that is probably the most important skill in all of our lives, is priceless. And it's so wonderful to see. And it's in their faces, it's in their parents' faces, and it's in Ms. Croc's face because she has the benefit of watching them excel. So thank you so much.
And on behalf of educators and parents of dyslexic students, I just can't say thank you enough for taking action on this very important issue and making this resolution happen. I think the more we can have the conversation about dyslexia, the better we can get as a community. So thank you.
Thank you both. And I wanted to just point out again, I know we did, I think, a presentation last year, so we can't do presentations every time for every resolution, but the importance is there and the support for it is strong. And it is important for us to acknowledge this work, not just this month, as I said in the last resolution, but every day. The hard work that our students are struggling to become readers and the hard, difficult time that can be. And so I appreciate the work that's being done, this pilot program, and I also want to acknowledge Margie Ayave of the Santa Barbara Ed Foundation, because it is through the support of the Ed Foundation that we can be here today with and move this forward the way we have. So thank you. And moving forward, then we're going to need a motion.
I will move approval of, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to get out of the consent agenda and back into action. I will move approval of the Resolution 2018-2019-11 in support of recognition of October as Dyslexia Awareness Month.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving forward to item number 3, board action on student transfer case 2018191-02, student confidentially protected under Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA 20 USC 1232, 34 CFR Part 99.
In the case of 201819I-02, move approval of student transfer.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to item number 4, board action on student transfer case number 2018191-03, student confidentially protected under Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA 20 USC 1232, 34 CFR Part 99.
In the case of 201819I-03, move approval, student transfer.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving forward to item number 5, board action on student discipline, Education Code 48918, case number 201718-46.
Okay, it's got to pull up because there's some specific language that I need to make sure I say. In the case of 201718-46, move approval, expulsion with enforcement suspended for 1 school year, which ends June 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving forward to item number 6, board action on student discipline, Education Code 48918, case number 201819-03.
In the case of 201819-03, stipulated agreement, move approval, expulsion with enforcement suspended, 1 school year, which ends June 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving forward to item number 7, approval of research agreement between Santa Barbara Unified School District and Mainstay Care and Consultation, LLC, for the evaluation of the reading intervention for elementary students with dyslexia pilot project. Mr. Matsuoka?
This topic was presented in a proposal format on September 11th, I believe, or maybe it was even the board meeting before.
I think it was before.
And so this has been reviewed and rebuilt by Chelsea Guillermo, who's our Director of Research and Evaluation. She essentially works with all of our research partners, whether it's UCSB, external partners. She does quite a bit of our own research. So I had her take over the development of the contract. So they've worked in all the privacy issues, all the language. And I also spoke with Ms. Hayabi from Santa Barbara Ed Foundation, and they they really want this study done on behalf of their investment, so they're going to cover the full cost of this research project. So there is no cost to the district for this. And it aligns with one of our emerging core values, evaluating our practices. And what I like about this project is we started talking about the evaluation of it last spring before we launched this year. And it's actually kind of rare that you get to plan the data analytics and the collection. So it's been really good. So the pair of researchers have worked with us on the design of this study. And so the team that just departed, Ms. Kroc, is especially important in that. So they designed what are we going to collect back in August, September, and what are we going to review next spring. So we present this to you for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Matsuoka. Do we have any questions or comments? Mr. Paredes-Ulloa? You raised your hand first.
Just want to say thank you to the Santa Barbara Education Foundation for paying for this independent evaluation service. As we're working on making more impact on the dyslexia issue with different interventions, it is important that we have the courage to check ourselves and continually improve our practice. So as a board member, as a community member, I'm very thankful that this is coming forward, and again, with the help of Santa Barbara Education Foundation, and I look forward to seeing this as part of a regular practice going forward.
Thank you. Ms. Capps?
Yeah, there's three things I appreciate about this. The first being the no cost, so thank you to the Santa Barbara Education Foundation, because I believe the first time we saw it come around, it was in the tune of about $30,000.
Same price, but
right. Thank you.
different financials.
And then secondly, the evaluation piece being so linked to when we're actually starting the program, and I think if we just move in that direction, I know this board will be pleased. And thirdly, the collaboration with the UCSB, I think our institutions of higher education are probably underutilized in our schools, and we're just, I guess maybe perhaps just recently seeing more of these MOUs and existing partnerships that are really smart with researchers that want to do the work and be collaborative with our schools.
Thank you. I think it's well said from both of you. So moving forward, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Moving forward to item 8, approval of provisional internship permit. Dr. Becchio.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. Members of the board, tonight I have two employees that were requesting approval for a provisional internship credential. The CTC does require that it comes before the board for approval before we send it to them for their consideration. And so one is a substitute at Roosevelt that will be covering that position more than 30 days. And the other is an English teacher at La Cuesta Continuation High School.
Thank you. Any questions?
No, but I'll move approval.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Moving forward, approval of traditional staff calendar, school calendar 2019-2020. Dr. Becchio.
All right, thank you. Well, I have in front of me, and I hope you have in front of you, the 1920 school calendar. So we appreciate the efforts of SBTA working with us beyond the August 31st deadline and your approval. What I do want to note with this calendar is we did add in the Professional Learning Day that you took up at the last board meeting, and that did end up having our start date of school on the 20th of August rather than the 21st. So that's what you'll notice in this calendar. Everything else is pretty much the same.
Thank you. Ms. Parker.
Just touching base, it looks good. There's always things sometimes that can surprise us. Hopefully there are no surprises in this one. But just wondering how soon it'll be posted, how soon we'll be messaging the change from the change in the start day from last year to from this year to the next year.
I'm not really too sure. I don't have experience through the cycle yet on when we put that out. So
What's today? I think we can get this up in about 2 weeks. We'll work with Lauren to get all channels in operation. but we should get it out immediately.
Yeah, it can be posted to the website, and, you know, we work with our webmaster the next day after a board meeting, and it can be posted then, but then shared within a week to our families.
And I will say that the copy you have in front of you is what we believe is the final version, unless you see some, you know, edits on there that are misspellings. But anyways, we think that's our final version. So we're ready to publish.
I just appreciate the simplicity. We're moving in a good direction here. Just with the parents' view in mind of really trying to figure out when school is happening and when it isn't. So thank you.
So can I have a motion?
I'll move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Moving on to item 10, approval between the County of Santa Barbara and Santa Barbara Unified School District for School Resource Deputy at San Marcos High School. And that would be Dr. Wagener.
Dr. Reed, School Board, I bring to you the agreement between Santa Barbara Unified School District and Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office to staff a school resource deputy at San Marcos High School. I am aware that we just began the 6th week of school and want to assure you that the deputy has been in place consistently since last April while we hammered out the details of this agreement. So at this point, I will take any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Mr. Paredes, are you on?
I'm a chatty one tonight, sorry. A few questions. Number one, I was just reading through the contract, and I was just wondering how much input did we have, how much input did the district have in the hiring process? That's question number one.
The answer to that was, in this case, there were 2 applicants. We were briefed on the background of both applicants, but we were not involved in the interviewing process.
Okay, so the SO came back and told us who they chose?
Yes.
And what kind of activities or trainings did we incorporate the SRD into last year? I know we had them for a short time, and what are we looking to incorporate them into this year?
So Deputy J.C. Hunter is the school resource deputy, and thus far he has the one training that I am aware of specifically that he's participated in. It was the implicit bias training that occurred in August, and so he participated in that. He also is participating in school safety preparations and will be involved in that, and we'll be sharing more about that later. But that's it to this point.
Okay, so no other activities, no other ways to try to integrate them a little more?
Not yet.
Okay.
I mean, I can't speak to what he's doing on a daily basis at San Marcos. I can certainly get that information or ask Dr. Runghaug to fill us in on that.
I would actually really appreciate that.
We can do that.
Yeah, and also, last question.
Can I back up? I forgot one important piece. He has been serving on our task force, our safety task force.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
And then last question, there's a part about when school is not in session, or when they are not in session, the SRD would take part in county-wide patrols. So my question is, what do the county-wide patrols look like? What do they look like this summer, and how do they relate to security in the district?
Well, those are county patrols, so it's not related to the school district.
And so there was no connection over the summer at all to the district, to any of the district schools?
He was on the San Marcos campus during summer school, yes. So he was involved on campus during that time. I think in terms of what he did up until this time and what he does going forward are going to be different. And so we were working out the particulars of the contract. But I can attest to the fact that he was actively engaged at San Marcos throughout the summer.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Ms. Simpson.
So I have a question, just for clarity's sake. So Kelly Moore is the school resource officer over everyone and not specifically for San Marcos, so that's a little confusing.
No, I'm looking at him. No, he's not. He is the school safety coordinator.
Yes.
And so he does a lot more than just the realm of the, resource officer. He's not in law enforcement anymore. He's with us.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to get clear of that because it wasn't like really clear because so much
That
is
does
focused
not
on
mean that Mr. Moore doesn't collaborate with the school resource deputies. In fact, he will share with you later, he conducted a training for first responders last week, and SROs and SRDs will be part of that.
Okay. And so do all of our high schools now have a deputy? We're all covered in all three, or are we still?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
We do have a new SRO as of today in our district schools.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Camps.
I think it's important to point out, and I want to thank you for the process, and our board last spring, whenever we had the chance to decide to do this, a consideration was the fiscal impact and taking this on as a school district, whereas I think it's important for the community to be reminded that the other schools is funded by, in Santa Barbara High School, the city, and in Dos Pueblos, the city of Goleta, correct?
That is correct.
And I think, perhaps that's another conversation, but there was a lacking of this position at San Marcos High School, which caused a lot of concern amongst parents because the county had eliminated the position. And so the school district felt compelled to fund it ourselves. Just again, reiterating.
Yes, for many years it was paid for, the county paid for that position. And then because of budget cuts, it was cut. And that's why they were without the deputy last year.
So it's conceivable at some future time that the county could potentially take this back over, correct?
That would be fantastic.
There
It
we
is
go.
conceivable that could happen.
Great. I would like, we had the just chance of, I think, seeing the resource officer on his first or second day, and he was so excited to be there, having been as an alum of San Marcos High School, I think in the band he was telling us. So could you just give us a little, it sounds like it's going well, could you just give us a little anecdotes of how the reaction is, again, especially because the fact that there was not this position for about 6 to 10 months, I believe.
It was right at about 8 months.
Okay. That was community concern, so I'm hoping, I would just love to hear a little bit more about how he's being received and any feedback you're hearing either from families or from him himself.
I haven't heard anything back from families other than being thankful that he's there. Deputy Hunter enjoys being there and has worked on integrating himself into San Marcos. I can say that I think he's had a pretty seamless transition working with the administration. I've been keeping a keen eye on that piece that I talked to you about last spring, which was administrators doing their job and law enforcement doing theirs and working together collaboratively, but knowing what our roles are, and that's very important. I will say the Deputy Hunter back last May was effective in uncovering, and this is something that school administrators, because they don't have the training, nor is that their role, he uncovered some potential teen pornography situations, and so that was very useful because we had some students who were being targeted and victimized. But yes, the feedback so far, San Marcos, I don't want to jinx them, but they've had a nice opening to the school year.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to say, I know that, 6 months ago when we had this conversation, the transparency that I appreciate Mr. Paredes Ulloa brought forward, and that is that we would like to know about the ongoing training that he will be going through, as that was pretty much framed in our meeting strongly by the board to really understand what type of training he is going through and what that is in reference to all of our students, to ensure that we have all of our students supported in an inclusive way. I also think it's really important that we have this equitable situation now, having an officer at each of the schools. And I know as a board, we're very concerned about safety. And so we appreciate the fact that we are in a situation of having officers at each of our schools. So with that said, I think we're going to move forward with a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and it passes unanimously. So at this time, we take a 5-minute break before our report and discussion agenda, and we will return to conclude with our reports. We're going to move forward with our report discussion agenda, F1. The first reading, Sunshining of Santa Barbara Teachers Association proposal for successor contract negotiations with the Santa Barbara Unified School District. Dr. Vecchio.
All right, this is the first reading. We have the Sunshining, this is the proposal for contract negotiations from SBTA. And they include they're really from Article 6, hours and conditions, teacher workday designation, co-teaching language, TOSA language, and the way that the process will work is with your direction, we'll bring this back for a second reading, and then at a public hearing, and then for approval after that at a subsequent meeting.
All right, well, I think, do we have any comments? Okay, thank you very much for that information. Moving forward with F2, discussion regarding the naming of La Cumbra Theater, the Joanne Keynes Theater. Mr. Matsuoka.
We do have a request to speak on item F2. Denise Adams.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. My comments are, as a huge fan of Joanne Keynes, who John Vecchio knows, brought to the Santa Barbara Mass Super Bowl Adams School, which set the tone for Harding, Cleveland, and other schools to finally participate in this competition and to be brought up to speed as elementary school district students should be. Anyway, I'm a fan of Joanne Keynes. However, my concern is naming anything after any teacher. We were very successful, as Mr. Vecchio knows, at Santa Barbara Junior High with the Marjorie Luke Theater and our fund drive. I know the district's always looking for funds, and I think we have great opportunities for institutions like La Cumbra, which is one of the most beautiful schools in California, to raise money, and I would hope that you would give it some thought of how to proceed. And perhaps Mr. Vecchio, given what happened at Santa Barbara Junior High and the success with Rod Latham and the crew that you put together there to raise money, perhaps we could do the same for La Cumbra. And so I'm just asking you to perhaps take a pause and look at it. And that's not to say don't name it after her, but perhaps like the Marjorie Luke Theater, we could get a lot of donors to invest in it and elevate everything at La Cumbra in the process, because music programs are important to learning math. Thank you.
Thank you. That includes speakers.
Thank you. So, Mr. Matsuoka, did you want to speak to this for a minute?
So I'll open with the overview of the process. The board requested an opportunity to talk about the naming of the theater at La Cumbra in honor of Joanne Keynes. And then after your discussion, if there is interest, then I'll outline the actual steps per the board policy.
Thank you. Ms. Parker.
How did you know that I'd want to speak on this? Just because I requested this agenda item? So I appreciate Ms. Adams' comments about the Marjorie Luke Theater, which is named after a teacher at Santa Barbara Junior High. Funds were raised there to renovate that building. I don't know if any of you remember the state of the Luke before it became the Luke, but it was falling apart. It was in terrible, terrible condition. And the district did not have bond funds at the time to renovate it. And went out, the Santa Barbara Junior High community really led this fundraising appeal. And it was really through the kindness of some of their major donors who really had been so influenced by Ms. Luke that it became named the Marjorie Luke Theater in her honor. But the reason the funds were being pulled together was to renovate. It was not for the district in general, it was to renovate that particular theater. We've been fortunate with La Cumbre Junior High that as it got to the same sort of state that the Luke was in, but at that point we had bond funds and the district was able to step in and do the appropriate renovation there. And it's in excellent condition. It is not one that needs that kind of fundraising done for its renovation at this point in time. We do have a number of buildings in this district that have been named purely in honor of former staff and administrators and community leaders who've been really important in getting the work done at that school, having an impact on students. And this is a case where I truly believe that Joanne Keynes has had such an impact on the West Side and that her legacy will be ongoing there. And that it's important for the district to honor that, to remember that. And this is a theater that I think actually having it be a named theater will raise its stature in the community. And so I think it's a win-win both for the district as a whole, for the community as a whole, and then for the West Side in particular. And so I did check in with her children who were thrilled at this possibility. And I know that they would want to be at any future meetings if this goes forward. And I did check in with them on the name. She did not have a middle name. She was Joanne, and then Keynes, Joanne Keynes is what they said they would prefer. And so with that, I'll leave it up to the rest of the board to discuss, but I hope that we will strongly consider doing this in her honor.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Anyone else? Mr. Paredes Ulloa?
Thank you, Ms. Parker, for bringing this up at the last board meeting. I know she meant a lot to you, and you have a long history with her. And I know a lot of us in the community do. Joanne, as I mentioned before, was the first person to really try to take me under her wing when I came in as a brand new first-time director for the CalSUP program, and in her own particular way, her own special Joanne Keynes way, she kind of laid it out the way it was, and that has served me really, really well in my career over the last 8 years or so. I just want to say how much I respected, just her work and her intense just dedication towards making La Cumbre really a hub on the West Side, and how just protective she was of her students to such a point that, she created the Posse program and then decided that, I need to follow these students into high school, and extended it out to San Marcos. Just all the work that she's done, the legacy she leaves behind, I think it's only right that we honor her in this way so that she can just continue making that impact in La Cumbre from here until who knows when. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sims-Moton.
Yeah, I'd like to echo the sentiments of my board members. I would just add that sometimes when you just say a name or a word, it takes you back very clearly in terms of that. Like Joanne Kane, everybody know. Somebody got some form of relationship with Joanne Kane. And the other thing that I wanted to ask is that, I wanted to add is that she had expectations of everyone who came in that building, every student. She had you expected to achieve, no matter what you came from, what you brought with you, she expected you to receive. So much that you found yourself going, I can't let her down. I have to go and even have that same expectation, but I really appreciated that. I know those were one of the best years for my son. He still reflects back on that in terms of those 2 years, which are incredible years when you are in the 7th and 8th grade, how incredible those years are and how formative they are. So I strongly support that too, because sometimes all you have to do is say, well, in this case, 2 words, Joanne King. So thank you.
Yes, and I agree with my fellow board members. In my experience, when I was working with the Anti-Defamation League, and I had not met her yet, and I just remember answering the phone and her telling me, you have a problem and we have a problem and you better fix it now. And I was like, okay, and that was my entree. And she's always been very transparent, forthcoming, but all again for all students and ensuring that all students are successful. So I heartily support this. Ms. Capps.
Just to thank Ms. Parker for the foresight of moving this forward so quickly. I can probably imagine how thrilled the family is in this time of their lives to have this be something that we're moving on. So thanks for moving on so quickly. Thanks.
So with that, you can hear the direction that we would like you to take in terms of putting this probably in a consent agenda item, or we can do an action item and then have some public comment.
Actually, so let me now outline the steps.
Well, let you tell us.
So we'll develop a resolution language that needs a public hearing.
Okay.
All right, so we should be able to get that turned around for the next board meeting. So that would be October 9th. We'll have a resolution for review by the public and give the public a chance to offer their comments. And then after that, we could bring it back for a resolution approval October 23rd. And I think it should be an action item.
There you have it. I think it sounds like a great idea. Moving forward, report on crisis prevention and preparedness, comprehensive school safety planning for 2018-19. Dr. Wagenick.
Thank you, Dr. Reed, School Board. I'll ask Mr. Moore if you want to take the podium. We're going to tag team here on this presentation. Felt it very important to catch you up on where we are in terms of school safety. Last year gave us a lot of opportunity to evaluate our work and improve our practices. And as I was sharing with Mr. Moore today, it is still not lost on me that you approved the position he now holds on January 9th, 2018, which was the night of the debris flow. And so, so we bring, actually, Meg, I need the slide deck, not the narrative. All right, thank you. You're doing great, though.
Now we just jinxed her.
Better her than me. Yes, if I could have the clicker. On helps. Turn it on, and then it works. So, I'm going to present to you some of the big overarching sort of the vision, the conceptual framework, and the model. And then I'll turn it over to Kelly to present to you more the nuts and bolts action activity that has taken place and will continue to take place throughout the year. So the big thing is that we have to strike a balance between the physical safety and the psychological safety. And one of the mantras is that that idea that people are only as safe as they feel. If they believe they're safe, that's going to go a long way. And so we're working towards that because we have students and we have staff who will become triggered if the El Nino comes this year, as it may. Students who, when it clouds up and begins to rain, that were impacted by the debris flow. The students who left during the fires and then, or when they experience social media threats, all those things. So we have to balance the psychological safety with the physical safety. And Kelly's going to talk more to how preparing oneself for incidences really enhances. So preparing for the physical piece makes folks more psychologically safe. Was it last week? It was last week. Last week, on successive days, we trained in two groups. On the 17th and 18th, we trained over 100 of our staff from each of the schools on the PREPARE model. And Dr. Shane Jimerson, who is one of the authors of this model, along with his colleague from the University of Buffalo, who is also a co-creator of the PREPARE model. They've worked together for 17 years. So this is a national group of experts. So two of the authors came and trained us. And, you know, I look at, when I look at this rendering of the PREPARE model, I really look at it as a way of checking ourselves to make sure we're doing what we need to do. Are we preventing and preparing for psychological trauma? Are we reaffirming the physical health and perceptions of security and safety? Are we evaluating psychological trauma risk? Are we providing interventions, and are we responding to psychological needs? And finally, are we examining the effectiveness of our crisis prevention and intervention system? So we can continuously keep asking ourselves, are we doing that? And to what extent are we being successful? And where do we need to improve? This is the model of comprehensive school safety planning. So it really does include both those psychological and physical safety pieces. In fact, physical and psychological safety is the foundation of the model. And you can see on either side that, you know, in our district, it has always been that we had school safety teams who came together and created the plans and kind of carried out and helped with the drills and so forth. But really, there are two distinct groups. There's the school safety teams who plan for the events, but then there are the folks, the school crisis teams. And that has been, and we saw that last year, is we needed crisis teams repeatedly. Santa Barbara High losing 4 students in 13 months. You know, the crisis team who responds then. Crisis teams responding to the debris flow when students were displaced from their homes and when they lost classmates who died. And so we have to have both, and we're preparing for that. And in just a moment, Kelly will be speaking to you about primarily the first 3 pieces of that, the mitigation and prevention, the preparedness, and the response and intervention. We'll be bringing to you in February for approval the school safety plans. Kelly has spent the last few months, I wouldn't say overhauling that process, but rather evaluating the comprehensive school safety plans that are in place and then creating additional pieces to them. The goals for the school safety plans are these. We're really looking, do we have are we speaking a common language regardless of what school site one works at or goes to school to? Is there continuity if you have a child in 3rd grade at Harding and 8th grade at La Cumbre and 11th grade at San Marcos? Are they coming home talking about the same things in a developmentally appropriate way? Do they address both the physical and psychological safety? Are we meeting all our legal requirements? Are we getting input from stakeholders? Are we listening to people? Are we listening to parents? Are we listening to students? And of course, staff. We need to align with other district initiatives and plans. There has to be a distribution of responsibility, and that's something that Kelly has identified for me in our weekly meetings, that administrators can't do it all when something goes down. And so how do you distribute the responsibility to staff, but also in some cases, you know, our high school students are big people. They're adult-sized people, and they can help be a part of that. So how does that play out? Do we have crisis response plans? And then again, linking all of our plans together and ultimately having one district plan. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Kelly and let him talk to you.
So, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to give you a little update of where we're at. And I think it is important that we give you an update. There's a lot of anxiety that's been created over the past several months in both national and locally. So I think it is important that we kind of give you an update. My first task was really to go over the plans and do an assessment of what we had. I did. They were very robust, but they were kind of disjointed. Every site had a different sort of take on what it was that they were responsible for. So what we really needed to do is identify a standard direction, standard language, standard protocols and so forth. So I have Dr. Wagner, I gave her some pamphlets that are being put out, and there are two different ones. One is our standard response protocols, and one is our standard reunification method that we'll be rolling out next month. But it is an effort to standardize across the district everything that we do, so it doesn't matter what school you go to, it doesn't matter what school you teach at, whether you're a 21-year teacher or a substitute teacher, you'll know the protocols for the district and so forth. So really the intent of the plans is to really give knowledge to our staff, our students, our parents, our communities, because it's without that knowledge or a misunderstanding of that knowledge that creates fear and anxiety. And that's what we're trying to do, is kind of support them with the knowledge and really kind of get into giving them the understanding of how and when and what's going to happen in an emergency. The previous school safety plan had essentially one component with a bunch of links to it. So what I did was I kind of kept the safety plan that we had in the past, which really dealt with behavior, discipline, creating a safe school environment for students and teachers to come to work and learn at. That's going to remain the same. But what I did is I took the disaster response portion out, and I'm creating a new emergency operations plan that will give you an overarching concept of how to respond in an emergency. And then we'll go into the functional appendices that will address specific behaviors and specific threats in emergencies. So one of the things that we looked at was the drills that were being done. They were done for the purpose of doing drills. And what I really wanted to add to that was some purpose for the drills. And standardize the drills. We're doing them once a month. There's a focus as to what that drill is for that month. And what that really does is it allows us to increase situational awareness so that staff and students can really kind of get an idea of what they can expect. It causes people to evaluate the risk and the threats that they're under and then make the appropriate action. But it also allows us to look at process improvement so that if there was some identified flaws in what it was within the drill, we can address it from a district level. And we can look at the common faults within our plan or our drilling, and we can address it right away that month. At the end of each month, I'll do an after-action report based upon all of the after-action reviews of all of the drills done at the individual sites. So, as Dr. Wagner said earlier, these are the trainings that we have done and that we are in the process of doing. So last week, the 17th and 18th of September, we did approximately 100 administrators for the PREPARE model. Which included both the psychological and the physical components. Last week, I also did, I trained my first batch of about 30 law enforcement, fire, and emergency medical services people on how to respond to our schools in an integrated, effective response unit, and not just law enforcement's come, when they're done, fire guys will come in, or vice versa, or however. So what it really is focused on is bringing a cohesive, integrated response to our schools. And what that does for us, on the front end of it, if we know what's coming from when we when we dial 911, we can set up response, and it'll be much more effective and much more efficient. So we're working with that. On the 22nd of October, we'll have the standard response protocol. We'll have about 80 people attend that, and that will be trained in the use of these two booklets that you're looking at right now. And it be expected from those attendees that they will push it out to the individual sites, to the teachers and faculty and students at that time. The next one that we're working on is the first care provider and a community emergency response team. We're bringing that up from Orange County, I believe, is where they're located. First care provider is an emergency room doctor and his organization that he created, but it really has to do with giving people the tools necessary to treat people who are injured in front of them. And it really kind of looks to the misnomer of the first responders. We're really emergency responders from the law enforcement, not the first responders. The first responders are whoever's there. And we have to give those people the tools to respond when they're confronted with an emergency. What I'm doing with this is I'm bringing this training to the fire department in hopes, we've conceptually agreed to it, in hopes that they can take it back to each of their stations and push it out as a community outreach to their local community within that school, within their fire districts. So hopefully that'll work. The second, the CERT, this is the Community Emergency Response Team. They have a school-based, and they have Listos, which is for the Spanish-speaking community, so that not only can they assist us at appropriate levels in the schools during a school emergency, but they're also available to the community and community emergencies. And if we have a resilient community, our schools are much better off. And then the Prepare Workshop number 2 really works at the intervention component and really goes more in depth to the psychological support and response and treatment of emergencies. Questions, discussions? Did I forget anything?
They'll let us know.
Yeah, I want to keep it short.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And it's just great to know that you're here.
Thank you.
And you're doing the work that you're doing. So before I make my comments, I'll turn to my board if for any comments or questions. Mr. Paredes Ulloa.
I just want to say how much I appreciate you stepping into this role and the creation of this role in the first place, to have someone centralized who can work with all our different schools, our administrators, our teachers on something as important as safety and security of our schools. And I commend our administrators who've done the job on their own for a very, very long time. But seeing the materials just makes me feel that much better that we're going to have a common language, we're going to have a common procedure, and that regardless of really what school they're going to, they're going to know exactly what to do. And we are using best practices. I mean, just from the material that I've seen and just some of the reading that I've done, it looks like we just really went out and looked for the best procedures for our students. And so again, I just want to appreciate you taking the time, you stepping into this role, deciding to apply for it, and appreciating the creation of this role in the first place, because I think it's much needed, especially in today's world. And unfortunately, I think we might need it for a while longer too.
Yeah, unfortunately, but that's the environment we're in. Yes, thank you.
Ms. Parker.
I'll echo Mr. Paredes Ulloa's comments. I really do feel like with your position now with the district that we're going to be taking school safety to a new level. I know there's a lot to do because I can think of so many areas of school safety to address, and I appreciate that. I think you're starting at just the right place. And so thank you, and thank you to the district for following through on board direction on this last spring. It really, I think, will have a huge impact. I do want to follow up on one question that might be for Dr. Wagenknecht, as you were talking about the possible triggers and trauma of the coming rainy season, which we hope for a rainy season and yet, also dread in some ways. And one of the questions I had is the training that's being done, crisis response teams and so on and so forth with, when a student is having an issue, an emotional issue, a mental health issue around this, it could be happening with their friends, it could be happening in a classroom with a teacher. And so I wanted just to ask if there's been consideration of the kind of faculty meeting training, student meeting training to talk about how to respond to a friend, how to respond appropriately in that moment, because I know that sometimes the first response can be unfortunate, and to not harm and hopefully help a student who's in crisis. How is that message going to get out to teachers, and how is it going to get out to peers?
There are a couple, yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple of things we've already done. I think the signs of suicide training, while it's called Signs of Suicide, it was really about how to recognize signs of depression and anxiety and trouble in oneself and others, and how to address that, and how to say something. And we did see quite a number of students referring their peers, but we have to remind them of that. So the Signs of Suicide training for 7th graders and 9th graders actually is going to be taking place in October and November. So last year's 8th graders will now get a different curriculum as 9th graders, and then of course our 7th graders didn't receive it last year. So that's one piece. The other piece is that through the Mental Wellness Center, we just received a SAMHSA grant for $125,000 a year for 3 years to provide mental health first aid to teachers and parents. We're going to be providing it in a shared setting over dinner, over a couple of nights. And so those are two immediate things. But I think it's also a matter of we're going to just have to do some awareness and start talking about that. So I appreciate you bringing it up. I know that Dr. Simmons at Santa Barbara High said that they had an emergency drill. No, it wasn't even a drill. A fire alarm went off, and she had a student who was anxious and nervous and said, "This is when they get us," And she said, "Stay with me. I have the radio, so I know what's going on. You're okay." And I think that's how we have to approach students, is just with a sort of situational awareness. But also overheard at several of our schools has been that the rainy season is coming. And so we're already starting to talk about how do we have our teachers be aware and in tune to that.
And if I might add, the plans really look at, when you start going through the plans, it starts identifying processes and things that you need to look for, and it also provides a kind of a peek into where we might need to improve. There are pieces of the plan that account for emotional first aid during the initial response to any emergency.
Ms. Capps. Well, thank you. I want to echo the sentiments. It seems as though we're upping our game here on school safety, and that is music to my ears, to add a couple metaphors there, but both with the school safety task force, with the hiring of your position, and again, I think based on your reputation, we're so lucky as a district that you wanted to do this job grateful, and now to have this chance to see just much more of a systemized approach. I raised a lot of red flags when we last spring, when reviewing however many of the school safety plans, it just gave me less assurance than it should, because some were good and robust, but others were clearly sort of cut and paste and kind of confusing. And so I have a couple of questions sort of based on that experience of reading through all those plans. One is, I saw that you have now the drills are going to be monthly, but that seems to be a departure, whereas we were doing them sort of less frequently in the older grades. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So now all are going to be monthly.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from experience, just I wanted to try to go to some of them, which I did, and they're harrowing to be part of, but also very gratifying to see the time and the intention. But I just found even in that process, they were sort of canceled, and it was kind of unclear when they might be. So a monthly kind of scheduled is a good thing to good approach.
Thanks. And I'm trying to get to every school
Great.
to evaluate from my perspective and using my experiences and where we can improve and kind of
Great.
polish those rocks.
Thank you. The second area is the school safety task force, or no, I'm sorry, the committee. Is that what they're called? The citizen groups that actually help construct these plans?
Yes.
I appreciate the distinction that that's not the same as a crisis team. These are parents and teachers, and I understand mostly anecdotally that it's hard to get people to serve on those, as you would imagine. I mean, it takes time. So I'm hoping that with this, again, upping our game in this area, that and the concern that we've had from so many parents, and the fact that we've had participation in our first school safety task force of about 80 people, that hopefully we see some better participation. But I wondered if you could speak to that at all in terms of what your expectations are for those tasks. Again, I want to get the terminology right. It's the school safety teams. Okay, that help devise these plans. Is that correct? Okay.
So the expectation is I'm putting out the templates, and then then we will get with each of the school site safety teams. And my expectation is that the school and the surrounding community will participate. But we know how that goes, and to what extent, we'll have to see how that works out, because there is a level of trying to keep it standard, right?
Sure.
So if we're going to keep it standard, we gotta kind of limit the input. We want input.
Sure.
We want people to buy off on the process itself, but we think that what we're presenting them will do that and allow enough flexibility so that they feel like they have ownership and they'll be confident in our staff and our students' safety.
Great, and I'm sure you have the right sense of who should be part of that, but it would be great to communicate that. Maybe you don't have it now, but if we can do a good job of communicating that. And if you do want parents to make sure that we have lead time and all that, again, I think that a parent serves on each one, is that correct? Or that might be under discussion?
Parents are invited and encouraged to participate. There's no requirement by law of who has to make that up, but I know that that's an expectation of most schools.
And perhaps we can use and you might be thinking about this, but the 80 or so parents who showed up to the school safety task force might be good recruits. Last concern I have, or question, is really about timing, because this came to the board and it is required by law that we have to approve these school safety plans, and we didn't have much time to do so last spring, and I just want to review the time frame for that. I believe it has to be ratified by April 1st or something like that?
March 1st, I believe.
March 1st.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if we could just be mindful of that, and again, it's great that we're having this discussion in September, and so I have every expectation that we won't be sort of in that situation that we were last year, where we didn't have a lot of chance to, our concerns didn't really have a chance. We had to, by law, ratify that evening, so.
So my hopes is that we present you with a very solid plan. But I do acknowledge and realize that this is an evolutionary process.
Yes.
And we will be adding to it as things come up, and we will be getting there. But the plan that will be presented to you should be presented early enough, I should hope, because we're very close to being done. I have one more legal box to check, and that's the Students with Disabilities plan. So that's the last legal box that I have to check that I'm aware of. But I think we're very close to getting the draft to people and working through the site safety teams. So I think we're close.
And I'd like to add, the goal that I asked Mr. Moore to set was to begin shepherding the schools through this process in November. They work on it in November, December, wrap it up in January and get it to you late January, early February for first review, so then you would have a couple of meetings, 2 or 3 meetings before it has to be realized. So that's the goal.
That's a great time frame. So.
And the hopes is because it's more standardized, that review process will go much quicker because you won't have 17 different
Oh, but they're so fun to read, so.
Right.
Well, thank you, Mr. Moore, and thank you, Dr. Wagner.
This one has pictures.
Good. Thank you.
Great. Ms. Sims-Bowman?
Yes, so Kelly, now that I know who you are firmly in my mind, I want to appreciate this presentation, and I really want to appreciate the physical, the balance between the physical and psychological pieces. Because, sometimes we're often have to shelter in place and be there, but if you've got a strong mind of what to do, it can carry you through being mind over matter in terms of that. So I really am glad to see that piece, that we're really going to be balancing that piece, because I think that's a crucial piece. The other piece is that, are you going to be coordinating with the local CERT teams here? Because I know that I'm actually participating one for the county, so that's why I was asking.
Yeah, so part of it is working through the Office of Emergency Management here locally with the City Fire Department, Yolanda McGlinchey,
yes.
And coordinating with her and her group to do that. She's one of the lead instructors. And so I'm coordinating with them, and I'm in conversation trying to set up our initial meeting as to how we're going to get that into the high schools. It's all part of the plan, especially oftentimes we get volunteers, but we don't keep them engaged, and this will help us keep them engaged a little bit more, I think.
Okay. So having gone through that exercise to become a certified, because it is that first response you're at home, even that helps with your community being able to respond, because you may not be able to get help for a number of days, but having someone trained is a crucial piece. And what I learned throughout the whole time, that I think it was 8-week training, and then we did a drill, you don't really know, have you got everything you need to do at that point? And when we were doing the first drill, I forgot what they told me to do. So to do it, often and constantly and consistently helps it, where in the middle of things, you just do it by automatic. You're not trying to figure what I should do. You'll just automatically do it. But it was a very crucial piece in terms of getting you through that piece. I was on the call center through the debris flows and the Thomas fires, and what I kept hearing over and over is that human connection. And so it's really important for this, allows us to also to stay connected as humans, and just hearing that voice. And sometimes it's just a calming moment, such as you just said. Dr. Simmons said, I've got you, it's okay. And sometimes that's all you need to do that. So I think that's really important to emphasize as part of this training too, how important we are, just our voices and being near each other. So.
Mr. Paredes-Ulloa?
Just one last question around messaging. Talking about doing these monthly drills, how are the students or the families being addressed, or how is this communicated to the parents so they don't feel, or the students don't feel like it's going to be triggering, and this is more empowering? So I was just curious about how that's going out. Is it a central message? Is it from the admins? Is it from you? How's that working?
So it's coming from the school sites directly and through their parent square, and how they're communicating. That line of communication is still happening, and I'm encouraging people to communicate with their parents and keep that. I don't want to become that communication piece. They need to be connected to their local schools, and they need to be confident that they're in control and that they're the ones communicating in that piece. And I think they're doing that. They're putting out parent square, they're putting out emails and so forth. So that's coming directly from the individual sites.
And so when the students are doing the drills, are there any messages about, would this just empower you more than it is to scare you more?
Yes, and so my understanding is that there's more of a protocol about, training the students as much as we're training staff, we're training students around what to do.
Yeah. And we're giving them the information at the appropriate.
So it's not nebulous that, is this a drill or not? That example that I gave, that was a fire alarm that went off. So it was a different situation, but yeah, absolutely. And that's where it's like, if I want to, hit 90% of my free throws, I've got to practice what I'm doing. Well, if we want to hit 9.
That's impressive.
I never did that. I was lucky to hit 50. It's the same idea, and so we want students practicing and knowing that this is something, and it's something that they carry into the rest of their lives too.
All right, well, I'm not going to be redundant. I'm just going to say that I appreciate the comprehensive approach. And honestly, we had the coffee with the board, and I know that's a theme that I keep bringing up, but at the coffee with the board, the conversation did come up around the safety of Harding School. So it was just so happened that you were going to be there within a few hours. So I think one of the benefits of having that conversation with the parents was the transparency of their concerns and issues that they wanted to have addressed. So I'm curious, did you receive any of that information? And I know each school has its own, perimeter issue in terms of safety, and so I think that clearly is though you want to be standardized, there is a lot of different, schools and the way they are all put together.
Yeah, so I did get that information, and I heard that this was a hot topic at your coffee event, and rightfully so, I guess. But we're Southern California, and we have different campuses and cultures and communities than we do in New York State, where they are their whole school is inside a building. So one of the things I like to explain to people is you can have all of these security measures in place, and if you don't train your people and your people aren't vigilant, then those don't mean anything. When it really comes down to it is our faculty, our students, our families are trained and confident to recognize something before it happens, to have intervention, if they see something, say something, type mentality, and really that they're part of the security. It's not a camera sitting up on a fence post. That's not going to stop something. It'll help us identify at the end or after that fact, but it's really putting processes in place where parents check in, and having parents do that. One of the things that is apparent throughout security is everyone wants a secure place until it affects them, right? So they don't want to be subject to the security measures. So we have to get people to understand that if they want a secure place, they're going to have to be subjected to security measures. So that's going to be part of this process.
And I think the importance of transparency about that and what that looks like for each school site and for the parents is important. So will there be presentations made to each of the schools for parents to be provided with this information?
There can be. There hasn't been anything planned at this point, but I have zero problems with going out and addressing each of the school sites individually. There will be a process by which we go over the plan itself, so they'll have that opportunity at that time to present their concerns. But we're also dealing with budgets. Security is expensive, and so there's this balance of physical things to secure us and actually just teaching. Teaching is a little bit less expensive.
I think what the parents were concerned about, for example, with Harding, was the bridge. But I think the fact that if they have standard protocol procedures and practice, just as the students and faculty do, then if they see something, because they're around the school all the time, and when the students are in the classroom, the teacher's in the classroom, this could be when a perpetrator is on campus or a situation might arise. So I think, in my opinion, it would be a good thing to consider being able to inform our parents of certain maybe standard protocols that they could be following in terms of what they would be looking for when they're on campus.
Yeah, of course. I don't keep any of these documents secret. There shouldn't be secret. They should be pushed out to the parents. They should be pushed out to, there's this thought that if we tell them our plan, then they're going to use that against us. Well, I got to tell somebody the plan. I have to train somebody, so as soon as I start training somebody, then it's out there. So we may as well get it out there and train the good guys with how to respond. But that includes training our parents and teaching our parents how to reinforce that at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can have that discussion with their kids, because frankly, they're the ones that are going to see the anxiety, and they're the ones that are going to have to tell us, hey, I think my child's having a problem with this and these drills. How can we help them?
So this is for Dr. Waganen. Is there an idea or a plan in place to provide that sort of training for the parents, or sort of workshops that could be happening?
You know, there's nothing in place right now. Not to say that, I mean, anything is possible, and I think we've been trying to get the first few months going, but that's definitely what we need to do, because a strong community, you hear it in what Mr. Moore is sharing, a strong community makes strong schools. And so, like I was talking about with the mental health first aid, let's train everyone up, you know, in all ways. And so that's a matter of working with our school sites to, whether it's going to PTSA meetings or doing things similar to what the board's doing, Coffee with the Board, it'd be like Safety with Kelly. You know, but we can do those things, and that's the beauty, is we can, right now, I mean, Kelly's busy, he's working, he's producing, I'm constantly getting things that he's producing, but we want him to be a resource, and that's what he is, not just to our school, to the staff and the administrators, but also to the parents. And so there's nothing preventing us from moving in that direction.
I mean, because we know how important parent engagement is. So just with the same theme that we're doing with education with our students, I think it would be something to consider. I know you're just launching this,
Yeah.
but it just seemed that that's a concern of parents, is the safety. And so to feel that they had, you know, a plan that they could follow, and also to be able to support their child at home in terms of mental challenges, or just what are you doing at school when this happens? And that practice could be even those conversations.
Right, so there's the next couple of steps in this will be creating resiliency for our faculty, and that same concept goes out to the family as well, and that's called the Critical Employee Emergency Preparedness, the KEEP program. Because as we know, most of us know that we're all disaster service workers by us being publicly employed in the state of California. So because of that, teachers and faculty and classified staff are all required to respond to the emergency. So they have to understand and prepare their families for them not being there during an emergency. And I liken it to this. I live in Goleta, and my house has been evacuated 3 times in the fires. I haven't done any of it. My wife's done it all. But she knew exactly, we've talked about it, she knew exactly what to do, so I didn't have to worry about it. I just told her, I'm not coming home. And don't know when I'll be home, but I'm not coming right now. Sometimes that's for months. It's that same concept that is easily pushed out to the community as a whole.
So thank you. And can board members, I mean, I would love to participate in one of the trainings to just sort of see what's going on in these trainings. Are we?
We can push the schedule out to you, make that available to you, so you can.
I mean, I think it would be good just to know, and also to practice in my own home. So,
Sure.
So thank you.
Of course. You're welcome.
All right. Thank you very much for your report. Moving forward to F4, a framework for equity and cultural proficiency in Santa Barbara Unified School District. Mr. Matsuoka.
We do have a request to speak on this item. Denise Adams.
Good evening, Denise Adams again, alumni parent of Santa Barbara Junior High, Santa Barbara High School, 2 students. I would like to comment on the equity and education by the Santa Barbara Unified School District. I first want to start off with the founders of our Constitution wrote a more perfect union, knowing that while we do not live in a perfect union, that we as a people strive toward the goal of justice, liberty, and opportunity for all. It's how we are hardwired as Americans. A lot has happened during my lifetime. I'm older than all of you. The 1954 Brown versus the Board of Education passed, which was essential and we all hailed. In 1972, after I finished public education, women had a right. For the first time, women had the opportunity to take the classes that I was deprived of when I went to Chatsworth High School in the San Fernando Valley because I was a female and my brother was a boy. AP classes were limited. Then in 1990, we had the American Disabilities Act. We heard tonight from your union president that she views that the most important, singular most important thing that you have as your charge responsibility is the social emotional growth of your students. You have a mission statement which states that you will empower your students, which you do a great job of. I think the challenge before you is that many of us want academic preparedness. Mr. Becchio knows me well. My son went to MIT. He knows what it takes. The days start at 4:30 a.m. We're in that swimming pool for water polo at 5:30 a.m. We finish our nights at 9:30 p.m. The average parent is spending over $15,000 to supplement the academic education of our students. Then when they get into the elite schools, they realize that they're not academically prepared. As someone who served on the Santa Barbara City College Foundation Board for 22 years, I can tell you, and you all know, 77% of our students cannot perform at a 5th grade level. And that when they give the exam over at Santa Barbara City College, I always like the outcomes because our little kids come out with the 95 percentiles in English and math, and the older adults coming out of our high schools cannot perform. You have a big challenge, and I think it starts with educating the parents. I have, Ms. Parker, gone to the Just Communities website. I have looked at equity in education. I read the whole curriculum. My issue is not achieving social justice. It's how that we go about it and how we ensure transparency, requests for proposals, and equal participation in the process. We all want the same goal.
Thank you.
Mr. Tay, could you pull up the narrative? You can leave that. I'll get to that diagram, but the narrative, I'll start with the narrative. The idea of proficiency, let me just kind of pause and slow down. So, you could be proficient at, I like the shooting free throws example. That's a good one. It's really, it's very measurable. We have proficiency with language, mathematics. I taught chemistry. Cultural proficiency is very subtle. It's, how do we handle another person's culture and language? How do we understand that? How do we respect that? And then how do we interact with each other? And America it's always been a complicated place. It still is one of the greatest places to live, but it's a mixture of a lot of cultures. Like I remember when I visited Japan, that was a really simple culture. They were all Japanese. I was just struck by that. I had never visited a place where it was one culture. And it made me appreciate this land in which we live, where for all of our challenges, we just mix people from so many different backgrounds. But it does create challenges, and I think the narratives that we see in our country, honestly around the world, about the lack of cultural proficiency speaks to how we need to educate students, this next generation. How do we deal with culture and race and all the differences? I thought these two definitions were a good starting place, but I do want to get to this diagram. This emerged in a cabinet conversation about 3 weeks ago, and we were really wrestling with the work of cultural proficiency. I think we got the first cycle of feedback from the board about the Just Communities contract, and so we sat with this question: how do we wrap our brains around a more organized look at cultural proficiency and equity? And I wish Sean Carey was here delivering this report, because she's been anchoring this. But we collectively as a cabinet came up with that diagram. So Ms. Jate, if you could scroll down. And that diagram's gone through several iterations, even since we first created it. But let's just pause about this diagram. I think it can be a mistake if cultural proficiency and equity is attached to one or two ideas. And I'll just mention some, like the equity course. Help me out. No, the ethnic studies, and that move to create more relevant curriculum. I mean, that's really important, but it's not the whole story. I would say Just Communities has been a big part of our work, but they're not the work. And if you look at that diagram, we've identified what we believe are 6 really interrelated ideas around developing culturally proficient students and adults. And so without going through each one of those, I think what's significant about this diagram is we're moving away from ad hoc, just kind of, okay, here's something to work on, here's an effort. And we've had lots of ad hoc efforts, each well-intended, each effective in its circle, but not integrated. And so what we believe this diagram, it represents, it's now a system, it's a framework. I think where we get in trouble is sometimes people are systems for school districts. And if the person leaves, there goes the system. I would say Ben Drotty was holding this work very, very intensely, doing a great job, but I think the stories that I've heard through our cabinet is Ben had to hold that work kind of by himself. When Ben left, I would say we lost some momentum, but now I feel like this framework's going to help us define who we are, what we believe in, and how we're going to do this. And so instead of ad hoc, let's get organized, because those circles overlap. And the other thing is you can assign a circle to a person in our district. And without going through all the details, I mean, literally you can attach a person. 2 examples. Parent engagement, Maria Lares Horton. Educator hiring and retention, Dr. Vecchio. So we're really excited about this, because when things come up, it will be assigned to a person, or a person's handling it. The tricky part of this is we have to have conversations about how these touch each other. And our challenge in cabinet is, we throw our potential agenda list up on the board. We get to 15 to 20 every meeting, and we just pick off the big ones. This one needs some airtime among us. It needs airtime in Ed Services, who's going to be the primary holders of this. So then, Ms. Jate, if you'll go to that other diagram, what we realized is this diagram now gets to connect with the school safety climate and task force. And if you remember on the right-hand diagram, we had a circle, it was called Education About Bias. And we knew that that was a placeholder, that was not a fully descriptive label. And so what we've realized is these 2 diagrams are connected to each other, that cultural proficiency and equity absolutely affects school culture and safety. But that work has to be held in a whole different framework. And if you think about it, school climate is really the school safety and climate work. So these two diagrams, I think, are going to interface and interlink with each other. They'll support each other. So that's our framework that we've created over the last month. So we are really pleased with it. It just is going to help us get grounded with operational details. Who's going to do what? So we share this with the board and offer you a chance to ask questions or offer comments.
Thank you, Mr. Matsuoka, and I'm thrilled that you were able to bring this forward so quickly after our last board meeting. Any board members would like to speak to this currently? Yes, Ms. Parker.
Thank you. I appreciate you and the cabinet looking at it with a systemic eye, which I know is a real specialty of leadership at this point. And because cultural proficiency has been core to what we've been working on for several years at this point. It certainly was part of the strategic plan starting in 2012. But this is looking at it in a way where I feel like it is more likely to live on and to improve and have more and more of an impact, even though I feel like actually we have made tremendous progress. More and more of our students and our staff have been trained around these issues, but there's so much work to be done. And as some of the speakers today earlier said, there will always be ongoing work on this. And this just puts it together in a way that I think we'll be able to hold each other accountable and hold staff accountable and provide opportunities that it'll just be clearer. So thank you for the work on this.
Mr. Paredes-Figueroa.
One, echo what Ms. Parker said, but also I appreciate the fact that we're looking at this as not a single solution, problem. It really is looking at a multifaceted way, looking almost like a game of 3D chess. You have to look at all the pieces, make sure they all, make sure you know where you're going. Because I think for so long in education we looked for that silver bullet and it's not there. And so being able to look at multiple approaches, multiple disciplines and how to approach this is I think a step in the right direction. So I really appreciate that.
Ms. Sims-Moten.
Yes, I echo as well. I do appreciate this coming forth. Just a couple comments. When I think about culture and I think about climate, those two are intertwined because if you're trying to create some culture, it's the climate in which you're trying to create that culture and how important that is. And even though we will continue to work to improve ourselves, to be more culturally proficient and to make sure that we're focusing on the climate, I think what it does each time is increase our awareness and increases our empathy toward the fact that we are different. And so each time we're getting better and we're improving each time. So I appreciate these two coming together. And I'll comment on I know our next item is on our mission and vision, but so I'm getting ahead when I say this, but I think what this does too is allow us to be held accountable for that ultimate mission that we're trying to go. If we're saying, the more culturally proficient we become and we have our safety climate, we're doing all those things, is it getting us to that goal? Right now, that's our mission statement. But it's easy to be able to hold ourselves accountable to everything that we're doing, whether we're holding the school climate piece or whether we're doing the family engagement piece. Are we doing that to get our students to that next place and space? And so I appreciate the simplicity of that, to be able to answer that simple question in everything that we do, whether the way we're answering the phone, the way we greet folks, are we preparing our students and parents and our school environment, getting us to that next place. So I appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you. And just very quickly, yes, Ms. Capps.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I agree. This is really nice to see this diagram, and we sort of, I think it's important to be stated that it's not just something we should be doing. It's actually we're required. It's our responsibility to our students to provide equity, and that every student in this district has equal access to education. And we saw with our recent discussion of our scores that we have a huge discrepancy. And so to sort of, I think the more we connect these dots, and you have here, but I would also almost add like a third that would be our achievement gap and our the scores, really, because there's such a connection between why we need to do this work, and some who might be misinformed or whatever, have different opinions about it, might think it's sort of this radical agenda, but it's actually required by the state of California that we provide equity to all of our students, and so we must figure out how to overcome these barriers. This is not just a good thing to do, but this is a must thing to do. And so I encourage this kind of work and the time that it's taken. I appreciate it. I would encourage you to even fill it out even more. When I saw this in preparing for the meeting, I thought, okay, that's good, but what's good words, but just the examples that you provided just now, that curriculum, we have ethnic studies, but we also have so many other key points. I think with Just Communities, to realize that the bulk of that funding goes towards teacher development is a really important piece, because how else are we going to tackle that? So I think if it were me and I was doing this, I would want to actually fill in each of those bubbles with at least some examples for the public and for the public to grab onto and really understand. Family engagement, what does that mean? I mean, it's one thing, I get Parents Square and I see translation devices, but I'm sure there's 10 other things that I'm even not aware of. So this is a great start, and the more we can kind of continue to connect those dots, I'm all in favor for, and I appreciate the work that's gone into this so far. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think actually I just want to acknowledge that this was started, and I think I think what's evolved with the safety task force is proof that the district has moved forward with that approach from this framework, and where we are from the conversation we just had with Kelly Moore, we have moved fairly quickly in a good positive way. So I appreciate Ms. Capps, your comments, because I do think the opportunity to flesh it out will happen, and the first step is to actually have a systemic plan and a framework that we can launch. And to me, the idea that this was brought together in the fashion that it was, a brainstorming opportunity with Cabinet to really start to have that conversation, I feel good about the fact that there's more to come, and that I don't think the story's over. It's just really beginning. So I see a lot of opportunity. So I want to kind of just state the positive piece of this, the connection of it to the school and safety climate, and the opportunity as a district to take on this is something I want to commend. And look forward to the fleshing out of these different circles and understanding what actually fits into those circles. But I think that we're on the right track, and I want to thank Mr. Matsuoka for taking the lead in making this happen.
I'll offer a couple closing comments. First, about this diagram. I think when you see the contract with Just Communities come back to you next board meeting, you ask for the specificity, the scope, the details. So you'll see in Appendix A that is just very descriptive. And my quick glance, the work is in 4 circles around cultural proficiency, but with the big emphasis on the professional development. You know, I mean, they're just experts at developing the capacity. You heard so many staff today just comment about how they are different people, not just different educators, they're different people. And we need outsiders to help us do that, all right? Because our administrators, we need that training as well. So I offer that. When you see that contract, go back to this diagram and see how it fits in, because that's a big dollar amount. But there's a lot of delivery of services to multiple circles. My second comment goes back to the right-hand diagram. So as the School Safety Task Force does its work, and I want you to realize that the report tonight by Fran and Kelly is an expression of that Safety Task Force work. And remember, we talked about when would we roll out recommendations. Well, we're going to roll them out as soon as they're built. We're not waiting for a May report at the end of the year. As soon as we build stuff, we are putting it into place, we're going to communicate about it. So I just want you to realize that I think both of these task forces are going to roll things out in real time. We'll keep you up to date. There's probably a summary report, once a year, that would give a big picture. But just know that the safety task force, look at the whole mental health space is completely redesigned. It's rolled out. This whole safety work is rolled out. So we're moving as fast as the teams build stuff. Okay. Just wanted to remind the board that we're not sitting on all these recommendations and saving it up. It's going out fast. Okay.
Thank you. So, what an opportunity it is for you to share with us number 5, our mission, vision, and core values for Santa Barbara Unified School District.
So the date was still left unchanged because it was on the September 11th board agenda. And it is one page. And as you can tell, I'm a fan of one-page summaries because if they're 4 pages, you probably don't remember it. So we've spoken about the mission statement already. We wanted to give you some visibility to a vision statement. And this has really been crafted by the instructional leaders, Raul and Sean. And it starts with the words, to develop students' ability to read, reason, and communicate. That's what they need to be college career ready. We added a preamble, like what would we do as a school district to develop that? And we spend a lot of time thinking about how we spend time and money at these school board meetings. And so look at the resources about time, our physical spaces. I mean, the last report tonight is about space and about our people, our human capital. And what I would say is we're constantly asking ourselves questions, how can we use our resources differently, smarter, better to achieve that vision? I think we have a lot of challenges and questions around time. I've said it, I think after the elementary minutes report, we've got to question the master schedules of our schools. Or I'm afraid we're going to continue to get the kinds of results that we have. We'll bring an update about Santa Barbara Community Academy at the November board meeting, last meeting for Ms. Parker, because that staff is really wrestling with time. And you're going to look at some of the proposed schedules and go, wow, that's a really creative use of time. It's really the same amount of human capital resources, but organized differently. So that's part of that vision statement. It's short, and so we offer that to you. I'll comment about the core value statements. When we landed on those 3 ideas of equity, improving our practices, evaluating our work, I've been struck by how many people remember that. Teachers, certainly our principals. I mean, that's in their vocabulary. I would say their daily, weekly vocabulary. We wrestled with taking a broader look at core values, but these have gotten so much traction, we felt like we should stay with these. We did offer some words to write them out. I would say the middle one needs some better words. That everyone should be committed to growth and improving their work. I feel like we need some better language around that. But those last 2 are interrelated. They speak so much to each other. How do you evaluate your work, how do you improve your practices? Well, you got to evaluate yourself. And then data is so much embedded in that. So here's our draft mission, vision, core value statements. I'm going to offer the board a chance to dialogue, ask questions, push back, think about words.
Ms. Parker, our wordsmith person.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to wordsmith tonight, but my feedback would be on the vision statement. I would be cautious because to me, when I look at it, it feels like the vision statement of the cabinet, and not necessarily of the district as a whole, keeping in mind what teachers are thinking, what classified staff are thinking, what students are thinking. And so I would seek that kind of input around what's broader than the cabinet, what the vision would be. And we could share our opinion, but I still feel like it would be too narrow. Whereas, you know, the mission statement, you know, can quickly encompass everything and it's short. But the vision, where do we want to be? I feel like that needs more input. Core values, I know that you know, we have our core beliefs and commitments that have been around for a long time. The core values, I think our teachers in particular just really appreciated just the simplification of like, this is it, right? I think equity, I would actually look at that one as well, because we believe that all students have the capacity and desire to learn. Well, they deserve equal access and opportunity and equal outcomes. And so I would suggest just framing out that sentence a little bit more. But I think that the really having our staff focus on equity, improving our practice and evaluating work, it's been making a difference, and I think it will continue to make a difference. And so I commend you on that.
I'll comment as each board member. I appreciate the word opportunity. We'll go back and see if that fits. It's the tension of making them too long, but that's only one word, but it's a significant word. Huge significant word. Yeah, the vision statement, I'll remind you of it was a report a while ago. A vision statement should help draw us into the sort of short-term, medium-term future in 3 to 5 years. Where do we want to be? So I appreciate the stakeholder questioning around it.
I just feel like probably your stakeholders wouldn't use the term human capital.
Yeah. Yes.
Ms. Sims-Moton?
I guess I was wrestling with that human capital one, but again, it's a work in progress. But I wanted to go back to the mission statement, because I think when you first revealed it, maybe at the last or the previous board meeting, I was like, what? I don't really get that, right? But what I began to do was actually use it in just my everyday conversation with different folks that I encounter, and the fact that I was able to say it and link it back to everything that we do. I said, we're doing this, we're preparing students for a world that's yet to be created. What does that mean? So what it does for me is ask myself that question. What does that mean when we say that? So I was linking it to tonight in terms of the diagrams that you were showing us. If we're talking about cultural climate, how are we linking that in the things that we prepare for our culture? Are we linking it back to that mission? So I think for the whole thing, can we link it back to what we're doing in very simple terms? And so every time I would say that to different variance people, they really liked that piece, because then it made you answer a question. So, well, then what are you doing in terms of that? So it makes you think and always ask those questions. So I appreciated that mission statement. I'm still working on the vision and core values, but the one that I would say the most is the human capital. I'm still kind of fixing on that one in terms like, can we use a better word or something like that?
Sounds like we need to find a more normal word.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. I think I need to sit with it for a while, but I will say that with the mission statement, I, like Ms. Sims-Moton, have had the opportunity to share it with different people, and it definitely led to the reflecting back, which is what I said actually at the board meeting when I first, had first seen it. But the idea of it really makes you go, well, what are we doing? What are we doing as a district? And it really puts the impetus to look back and really see, well, are we doing that with our academics? Are we doing that with our professional development? Are we doing that with, cultural proficiency? So I think it has a really good reflective perspective. And it actually, I've had different teachers come up to me and just say that it excited them. It's sort of like it made them excited. And teachers that I actually work with in my teaching, who felt that this was like an innovative kind of perspective, and that's what they got excited about. So I do think the vision statement needs a little more vision. But I think, that's what it's all about, refining and designing.
Can I just add one more thing? I think also the mission statement, it allows the whole community to get involved in that in terms of those pieces. So I appreciate that too. That was some of the feedback as well. That, oh, we see ourselves as doing that as well. So it really invites the whole community and how prepared. Also, I could see even, I don't know what the students' reaction to that is, but they can see themselves too as a part of being a world that's yet to be created. What do I need to do as a student and get excited about it? So I just wanted to add that as well.
I think the feedback that I'm hearing tonight, and it resonates with me, is I think the mission statement is headed in the right direction. The 3 core value statements, it really has anchored our staff. Remember, I just remember the board who interviewed me said, we have way too much going on. And that simplicity of those 3 statements came from that summer of just listening. Like, we got to slow this place down. I think it's working. I think we should stand those 3. I think the vision statement, we probably should think about a broader stakeholder process for that and just listen. So where do you want to be in 3 years, Santa Barbara Unified? So I think what I'd like to do is bring back a pretty solid version of the mission and core values, because there are statements, like there's an update of our board policy that I've been waiting to deliver, but it talks about what is our mission, vision, core values. You know, it should be in a lot of our documents, our LCAP. Our schools are starting to include it in their WASC documents, and I think you're going to see it in the next generation of SIPSs. So we'll give some time to the vision statement, but I think we've got some pretty solid work established for the mission and core values. Great.
Thank you. Moving to item number 6, McKinley Elementary Facility Plan.
All right, this is the board's first glimpse into what we call the replacement of portables with permanent classroom space. And before we got too far down the road, we wanted to make sure that you understand the general strategy, but also each campus we are discovering has its own nuances of what needs to be fixed. So we're furthest along with McKinley, and I'll just summarize the financials. So we have allocated in measure, that would be J for elementary, the replacement of 5 portables. The budget allocation, it comes out to about $450,000 per portable. And a portable is about, let's just round it off, it's 1,000 square feet. All right, so we have a budget to replace 5,000 square feet of space at McKinley. So when we finally got on the ground, have you guys been in the second floor of McKinley? Ms. Parker has. You've been up there?
Yeah.
So when you walk in the main doors, you go past the principal's office, there's a staircase to the right. You probably don't go up there because you don't know what's up there. There's a second floor, and Ms. Jate, if you'll go to there's a couple pictures. Let's see if they show up. They were slides 1 and 2. You use the touchpad?
Hold on. I just had them up.
Here, I'll tell you what, why don't you, okay, there you go. So that's an image of the second floor. It cannot be used by staff or students because of ADA issues that have been created since the building was built. There's no elevator currently in the building, but it's 2,000 square feet of prime space. The windows look out on the mesa in the Pacific Ocean. You open the windows, you get these ocean breezes. I mean, it's just a tremendous space that we can't use. So Joe Wilcox is here and he'll walk you through the detailed diagram, but we tasked Joe with, okay, how do we get an elevator in here and how much will it cost? So for the cost of one portable, essentially we can reclaim the second floor. That's what we're presenting to you. But I feel we need to have complete transparency with the community, because it said we were going to replace 5 portables. The net effect is going to be about 4,000 square feet of space. So in a sense, we're giving up 1,000 square feet of space, but to reclaim a space that's inside the main building that we can't legally use. And so we felt like that was a good trade-off, but we feel like we need to present these kinds of decisions to the board for your consideration. So I'll have Joe come up and just present some of the ideas for the second floor. And let's see, Ms. Jate, why don't you go ahead and disconnect?
He asked me to put this.
Oh, okay, that'll work. There we go, that's the right image.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody, and thank you, Carrie. As Carrie mentioned, this is the second floor of McKinley School. That stairway on the right is the existing internal stairway that's a concrete stair that goes up to the second floor. No, on the right. The stairway on the left, I think our office did in the 80s, because once you're over 1,000 square feet, you need 2 exits out of a space. So the district had that as an exit stairway only. And to the right of that exit stairway is the best place to put a new elevator that actually is over the basement. And when you enter the main hallway, the main lobby, just before you get to the library, you would turn left and go into the elevator door and go on up. We've already had preliminary meetings with the Division of State Architect's office in Los Angeles. Okay, thank you. And talked about how we would seismically separate the elevator from the building. We talked to them about the requirements for restrooms, and that's why you see 2 restrooms in the space. And as Carrie mentioned, we have 2,000 square feet, and we're going to break it up into, where's the plan?
In the red center, right there. No, the center of the.
So right here, we're going to put a glass wall. This is, if you see at the bottom, this is option C. We've done like 3 options. We've decided that this would be one operable wall, and this would be a smaller space, about 550 square feet. The rest of it would be larger space, and again, we're maintaining the exits and the exit out this way, and then there's the elevator. So it's a pretty straightforward plan. Carrie didn't mention that these existing ceilings are 12 feet high. Right now, they're various surfaces. Some of them are plaster, some of them are acoustical tile. It's kind of a hodgepodge, and we'll clean that up. And as Carrie mentioned, the windows are beautiful. Part of our cost estimate is to restore all the windows and actually fix the bottom half of the double hungs to keep them safe, because right now if you open the window you could easily just, and there's a picture of the front of McKinley right over there. Those 2 windows are these 2 windows right here, and it truly is a great space.
Some of the programming that we've talked to Ms. Harris, principal, about is, every elementary school should have a makerspace. And so this would be a shared space that would serve as a makerspace. It could easily hold a grade level team of 6th graders or 5th graders, but we actually think it could be a shared space where, all the kids could rotate through there. That image, if you can go back to the schematic. We've taken a lot of time to think through with KBZ about the division of space, and so that smaller space, it would be tight, but you could get a whole classroom in there. We'll just have to not load too much furniture. But what I've learned from my past experiences, there's something about a 1/3 to 2/3 split of large spaces that works really well, because you can open these, it'd be some kind of interior garage door system. If you open those doors up, the whole space is connected. But you can also close it and have a large classroom space and a smaller one. And so it's acoustically separated, so you get some sound protection. But visually, since it's all glass, one teacher could send 20 kids into the small space and still supervise them. Because all you have to be is just somewhere in that large room and you can see every kid.
Yeah, this schematic plan shows 12 students sitting at tables and 8 students sitting down this area here, so 20.
And then the other plan is to put air conditioning into the space. Part of our commitment is we need to get one larger chilled space so that on hot days, the school has some pace to rotate kids in and out. So there's our conceptual ideas. Board questions and comments.
Ms. Parker?
So first of all, I think it's very appropriate and definitely in the spirit of the bond to move forward in this way. I mean, it was never, actually, the community would be thrilled. Both that community, the larger community, the old board, this was exactly what we were thinking of. You know, anytime that you could take an existing structure and actually make it usable in this way and get rid of portables, that is fantastic. And so I think it's highly appropriate in terms of that. One question I had is, so there's two questions. One is that, is this enough space for students to have classes if you get rid of 4 portables? And this becomes this multi-purpose room essentially. Does McKinley have the space it needs for classrooms with this plan?
So part of what we have to analyze is if we create this space and use the portable money, but it doesn't create a teacher's classroom. So we're doing a classroom count to make sure that we still have enough space and enough longevity in those portables that we could support it. Right now, McKinley, there's a couple of empty rooms, so classroom count today we're okay. But as we analyze the needs, what we have to think about is, you know, what portables should we keep for overflow capacity in the future? This is not in the report, but I believe we have enough budget space to replace 2 portables with permanent rooms. And what we'll do is we'll move the oldest portables off-site. So, but we are very mindful that we have to maintain classroom capacity for all the teachers.
And then my second question is about envisioning this as a project-based learning space, a maker space. And I want to point out and bring up, because this board hasn't discussed this yet, and it's an opportunity to be thinking about, you know, talking about this in the near future. The district has 2 highly trained maker educators in the elementary district. And one is at Adams and one is at Franklin. There are many factors as to why those schools are doing as well as they are. They're the highest performing Title I schools, but I don't think it's a coincidence that they have highly trained maker education going on there. And so it's one thing to have a maker space. It's a whole other thing to have one that's being used effectively in a way that makes a difference for student learning and student engagement. And so I think this district really needs to talk about this. If you're going to create a maker space, you need to have a maker plan. And I would put out there, I'm very mindful of this right now because I'm about to become a maker myself. I'm bringing in a Maker 1.0 at the library where I work. And it is very much a librarian role in many, many schools. And that is where most of the education is coming out of, library schools that are training their graduates in maker education. And I would suggest that there be a discussion between your maker educators and your elementary librarian and cabinet to talk about where is this going, because I do think it's really important and it's incredibly effective engaging kids, and so I think it's important that we all, stakeholders, be having that conversation, and this is a great opportunity. And yes, you don't need to, I mean, obviously Washington has a maker space as well. They don't have the same, I think that's more of a, maybe their parent organization that's paying for their person. But it is something, it's definitely a way of the future. Project-based learning is a way of the future for our elementary schools, and so we should be talking about it as a district.
Comments? I think you raised good questions and comments, and I would agree with that, with the professional development piece around that. And I think you're making efforts that way because I had actually attended a number of workshops, not this last June, but the June before. But I think if these spaces, innovative spaces for opportunity for student learning, I think this is exciting. And when you look at that room and you think, gee, you know, that's so not exciting, right? What's going on in there? And to be able to create a space, you know, when I think about what the idea of what you're planning for DP, you know, it's kind of like we're creating this in the elementary arena, which is what we're wanting to do in developing pathways to our schools. So I look forward to hearing more about it. Yes, Ms.
I do have one quick question on you mentioned the air conditioning, which I'm all for with rising temperatures. Is there air conditioning at McKinley, the rest of the buildings?
The portables would have air conditioning, but the main building does not.
Is it possible or have you explored putting it elsewhere while you're at it, or?
We haven't at this point.
I would say the cost constraints of that would be, it would far exceed our budget.
Yeah.
So my main thing to test was just the concept of how we're using the portable mini, so I'm hearing it's okay. Because we're getting close to getting this into DSA, and I just didn't want to get too far out in front of the board. Your next approval would be the builder. So we'll put this out for a lease back builder, and you would be approving a contract with the builder to build out the space. And I think we're going to talk about the other 2 portable replacements as well. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. So moving forward to the end. We don't have any consent items. Coming events. We spoke about those earlier in terms of the open house at Goleta Valley on Wednesday. Any other events you want to share out? Our next meeting will be our special board workshop on Saturday, September 29th from 9 to 3. And then our regular board meeting will be Tuesday, October 9th, 2018. So with that, yes, Ms. Sims? No, I will not be there on the 9th. I have to attend I have to work. I have to go to a conference, so I will not be here, but our Vice President, Ms. Sims Moten, will take helm of that night, and I'm sure it'll go very smoothly. So with that said, and I know my board members approve that we will now close our meeting. Thank you.